Well, hello and welcome to week 5 of Europe, Middle East and Africa for the Community League of the WTRL. I'm Katie Bates and I'm joined by the one and only Zwift master himself, Nathan Guerra. And Nathan, I'm excited. It's my first time here at the EMEA. I'm told we've got a few ding-dong battles going on.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm really happy to finally be able to sit next to you, Kate, and do some awesome commentary on this. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Now, do we got it down yet? EMEA. I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
EMEA, yeah.
Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that we can expect me to trip over that a few times. And I normally commentate on the APAC, of course, and it took me a full season to understand all the acronyms and what everything stood for. So bear with me, folks, as I catch up on all the team names. But, I heard this is where all the action was and I wanted in. So it's good to be here. Now, we've got a big teams time trial tonight. And whoever put this together has a pretty wicked sense of humour because they're going around New York, around the mighty metropolitan, not the nicest of courses.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the course. I think. I mean, this is going to be absolutely brutal. All of the information that we've gotten out of the community so far is that it's been suffering. It's been, really hard to keep together. We saw this morning with APAC. You and Anna were talking a lot of the time about just the absolute separation of all the teams over and over and over again. But the teams that kind of kept things together, we saw maybe some new strategies as well about riders, taking off the front. Don't know how well that actually worked out so much, but a lot of mayhem when it came to keeping everybody together.
Yeah, I mean, Anna kept making some funny sounds when they'd flick up on the teams would come up on screen and there'd be some gaps or a lot of oohs and ahs and doesn't look particularly comfortable. Of course, she's de-essing today for Sarah's Pro's Closet, so a bit of a different story for her. She'll have to get on board this course. Let's take a look at the ins and outs of it. It's 20-kilometre lap in total, but Nathan, that KOM around the halfway mark looks pretty tough.
Yeah, coming right out of the start gate, actually, a left-hand turn into a slight little uphill gradient for quite a while, actually a false flat situation, so that can be a little bit dangerous for the riders. Then there's a climb into what I'm calling the Rainbow Road, translucent road for a while. Then it's flat for, I think, a solid 5K or so, and then you hit the KOM. It's 1.1 kilometers at 5.7% gradient, but that is kind of deceiving, I think, because the reality is there are some serious kicks. You're looking at 15, 16, 17% gradients at times, so very, very difficult. Downhill into Super Tuck, and from there, it's just kind of a all-out drag race to the finish, I think, Kate. But really, the deceiving part there, though, that 5.7, that doesn't really speak to it, I don't think, as to what they're getting themselves into.
No, and I think that kind of goes to how important course recon is because it is pretty deceiving if you look at those numbers and you think 5.7, that's pretty temperate, but it's not at all. And we have seen so far that the minute it hits over kind of 8-9%, it can be quite brutal. And you mentioned before that you don't think it works with a rider out the front. I don't think it does either, but I think we're going to likely see a whole lot of that going on again today. Let's take a look at the standings before we head out there, just so we can get a grasp of who we're looking at this evening. All right, let's take a look at let me get this right, EMEA, that's it, Division 1. So we've got BZR, Sport Solid Esports Team Red. Oh, they've got a clear lead there. They are nearly 10 points ahead of Fusion ECT. World Elite Zwifters in 3rd, DBR RT in 4th, Cryogen RDT Men in 5th. The Canyon Development Squad, that's becoming an increasingly famous name in the esports world. Vision EMEAE in 7th, Foudra EXO in 8th, Wahoo Lacole in 9th, and BZR Sports Solid Esports Team Blue, and they are bookending this division so far.
And in the B category, it's to be our Tornadoes, solid 80 points all the way through. So undefeated, it looks like. They're Kirchner Honeybees in 2nd there. Cryogen Zanocullen in, I don't know if I said that right at all. I know it's going to be a climb. They always use the climb name.
It's the Zoncollen, and it's
Zoncollen!
It's in Milan San Remo.
See, the true the true road/track cyclist gets me there, of course. All right, SZ Mamer there coming on through for fourth. Innovation Alien for fifth. Evo Vortex with 55 points in sixth. SZ Forsete in seventh. Real close there with their team, sister brother team there. Heimdall there in eighth with 51 points. Cops there coming through in ninth, turning on the sirens. And then it's Colville Wheeler CC in 10th place.
I like that with the cops. All right, let's take a look at the C. The Belgian Zwift rider Rhinos won. They are, look at this, bit of a tie going on at the top of the tables here with the Vikings Drazel in 74 points and only a couple back of the TFC Mercenaries. Evo Core 1 in fourth. Bishmaster Pro sitting in fifth. Crank It Up. The Dads Inside Riding Trainers in sixth. Foudre Cognac. Cognac sounds pretty good in seventh. The Belgian Zwift rider Rhinos 2. They are in eighth. Cryogen Issaran in ninth, and the Wolfpack ZRGR27, that is a mouthful, they are sitting in 10th.
I don't know if that French team wants to show up as is that their sponsored race food? Not sure the cognac there is what we want on the bike though, but their avatars are going to be pulling some of those moves we saw last night for you, this morning for me, all over the course here. It's Kirchner Bumblebees there in first, SC Frey there in second there. Bumblebees got a little bit of a gap, it looks like, and really just need to finish out the season in that spot, keep on consistency. But then Belgian Zwift Riders Gorillas showing up in third, and Vikings Asgard in fourth, Herd of Centaurs in fifth, Kirchner Junior Bees in sixth, Zwift Scotland D2 seventh, Cryogen Koppenberg there in eighth, and then Z España Castors in ninth. GC Holy Rollers, they are praising it up in 10th place right now.
Oh, I like that name too. All right, that is the lay of the land thus far going out there. On last night, Nathan, I said that you can't surge too much forwards and you can't surge too much backwards, and I got a few crazy side eyes for what on earth it meant to surge backwards. We'll have to go through that because today it's not just about maintaining a pace if you're at the front, but you've got to make sure you don't wait too much. There's quite an art to it, isn't there?
Oh, surging backwards, the backwards power up. It's a new one that Kate's turned on the backwards power up last night. No, we're gonna have a conversation about that. There is a tactic though. You were right. It's just I don't know about the language of surging backwards.
Yeah.
You're 100% right there about going to 0 watts per kilogram and then getting right onto the back. Like that is a serious skill that you need to learn about your timing, knowing when to go. And there is a reality that in real life racing, your depth perception, right? And knowing where somebody is. And there's kind of this natural ability of just, slotting in behind the last rider real easily, kind of knowing the speed of the riders around you. You don't get that with an avatar. You don't feel the wind on your face, how fast you're moving, how fast you need to be going. So the anticipation takes a lot of practice knowing how to go from 0 on the front, not being in those avatars' way so they don't have to push past you as hard, and then getting right onto the back. The timing there, it's pretty knife's edge.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of course that really takes no survivors, and I think it will actually teach a lot of the teams a little bit more about each other. I can imagine some fiery Discord chats going on in the background. Gee, I wish sometimes that flashed up on screen for us. I think that would add a little bit more entertainment. Again, now we'll go down and look at pictures when we can. Of course, the teams have to start properly, Nathan, by nailing it out of that gate.
They do. So we are in with Evo here, actually. They're just getting into the climb. We're starting in, they're 8.9 in. We're going to see if we can, this is a heads up, everybody. I want to give everybody a heads up. We've been saying this the last couple of weeks. We're going to just put that caveat out there. We are waiting on Zwift data for the live data and the splits. We will bring them through as quickly as we possibly can. We don't want to focus in too much on that. We can definitely get an idea of where people are at, though, on course when we look at the time gaps, at least between the riders who are seated near to them. They do start from the lowest current standings to the highest standings. So Evo did get out on course first, being the lowest standings out in the EMEA 1. So we're looking at East 1, Division 1 right now with the argument here. out of Sweden, and they're just getting into the climb here, Kate. 8% gradient currently, and this is that section we were talking about, really, where you can kind of put it all on the line. You don't really want to save a whole lot here. Keep it together, but at the same time, you can really risk going into the red here because you get that downhill afterwards.
I mean, in many ways, a course like this, if you're a good climber, this is where you actually get to relax a little bit, because if the climber's going too hard, for sure gaps will open up. This is one of the smoother teams I've actually seen thus far this week in terms of sticking together up that really steep gradient. And Nathan, I don't know how you folks roll over here in the EMEA, but over in APAC, there's an awful lot of talk about fashion and what everybody's wearing and what they look like. I've got to say, these guys are rolling pretty good. Tron bike, what do you think about bikes on tonight's course? We've got a bit of a mix here between the Tron and the disc.
This is a really interesting setup, actually, because this is the sprinter's bike that Lewis has shown up with here. Lewis Enright coming out of South Africa. All the rest of his team has shown up on Tron bikes, which are the middle of the road. It's kind of your known for being your best all around. I've been challenging that lately. I think Anna was taking some shots at me because so many of the top athletes were using Tron bikes in APAC this morning. But it's interesting that Enright showed up with this kind of confidence. I'm wondering if perhaps he's one of the stronger workhorses on this team, because that is your pure TT / sprinter's bike, where it's going to be the fastest rolling, lowest CDA, but it's going to be the heaviest bike out here. Everybody else is on an all-arounder here for me, so I have a feeling that Enright, maybe the tactic is he forgot to change his bike. That could be the tactic, is he showed up in the pens and just, oh shoot, I'm on the S-Works with the fast zip setup, or maybe he's the person who's doing the bulk of the work on the flat sections. That could be a situation where they're like, let's get that extra seconds out of him.
Yeah, I think it might be that, given his heart rate, because they've just gone up they're heading toward that KOM arch there, so they're at about the halfway mark. But those 15% pinches, his heart rate never sort of went higher than it is currently, past the mid-160s. I reckon that's pretty controlled, given this course, and indicates he's still got a bit in the tank. Now, this part, I'm impressed they've gone over all so close together. If any of them are going to jump in the power tuck, they need to make sure. See, all of a sudden, these little gaps do open quite quickly, but Williams needs to keep going, because we don't want to happen. I need to find a new term, don't I? Not the reverse surge or the backwards surge. But this is where it can be a little bit dangerous. But so far, pretty textbook for Evo. It'll be interesting when the top teams have started to see. I think they'll be a little bit more strung out, pushing it a bit harder through here. But I'd say kudos to their style and their form so far, to have 5 of them so close together. We didn't actually see this at all in APAC, not in a single team. So they're looking pretty good.
Very organized here. They really know what they're doing. Evo is a team, overall as a brand, that shows up to the WTRL TTT on Thursdays, and I have a feeling that maybe because of that, and this is very familiar names here when it comes to the Thursday TTT, so they have the experience, obviously, and it's showing up here with how they're able to stick together. Going to move backwards, though, and see how things are going. I was seeing there was only a 30-second gap back to, it looked like, oh, we actually have Wahoo Lacole has shown up on the day, and there's some familiar names, I would think, to a whole lot of people over in the European region here. St. Pran are here with / Wahoo Lacole, as it's going to be Ellis. And Laverick is here. I have a feeling we're going to see Laverick on the front end of this climb, being, hill climb champion out of the UK. Cameron Jeffers is now racing here as well. Quentin Milners. I mean, this is a top team. Moldy has showed up as well, John Mold. So this is a star-studded team, and they're not. Now, one of the things here that's interesting about Wahoo Lacole is they haven't necessarily shown up with the kind of results, though, that I would be expecting from a team with this kind of talent on it. But maybe in the second half here of this season, we might start seeing some serious results coming. I mean, especially with now picking up John Mold. He hasn't been, from what I've seen, racing with them too often. So they've really showed up with the whole roster this week.
It's interesting to consider also the skill that it requires to get the most out of yourself in Zwift, because I've seen some from Australia, especially some really good road racers jump on Zwift, and it not translates straight away until they have a little bit of time and a little bit more experience. The other thing to consider is the gaps between uh, the team riders, that everybody's a little bit tentative because maybe they don't want to be one of those stories where all the riders are finishing one by one. Certainly, Ed Laverick is the one we might expect to be the strongest climber here. He's actually just sitting at the back there. So sometimes you'd think your strong climbers should go up the front and pace, but that can actually cause a little bit of mayhem. We saw it last night. I think sometimes it's pretty hard to pace well below your comfort level, always waiting out and listening for where the other riders are. I think it does cause that on again, off again scenario going on a little bit. But sometimes, and I reckon this is what we're seeing here, you can have some of the better climbers who almost end up as a float going back and forth and doing a turn of pace, but then going back and making sure the other riders can come back on. So Laverick's sitting in second, Matthew Ellis taking the pace in a pretty consistent fashion too. But these are some pretty high heart rates. Look at Jeffers here; he's in the 190. That kind of makes my chest beat a little bit when your heart rate's that high. That certainly indicates a fair bit of effort for Cameron Jeffers.
Yeah, Jeffers here now, 8.5 watts per kilo, 190 beats per minute here. I mean, this is some serious suffering coming from him. Able to come back. I was a little surprised to see him and Moldy off the back just a little bit for a moment. Now coming all back together. It looks like they're going to be able to come over the top with 6 riders. 9% gradient here at this point. Now Laverick right to the front. I think he was saving a little bit for these last moments. Now up in the 6 watts per kilogram. Only 166 beats per minute. Ed, I think, is well within control of himself. They're going to use him on the back end of this course, I think, or at least coming off of this climb. He's going to have a little bit extra in the tank, perhaps. Other thing here is the bike choice. They showed up and just don't even care, it looks like. You know, they've got half Trons. They've got 2 of these Sprinters bikes. They've got the Venge. I mean, this is interesting here with the S-Works, with the zips on. Now up into 8.4. Look at the kick here. Getting it up to as much speed as they can. 68 kilometers per hour on this section. Most of the teams we've seen so far are at 66. If you saw how they punched those orange numbers, came over the top, got right into Super Tuck with extra speed, and now look at the roll through as well. Cam, though, off the back. This is not the section that you want to wait for Cameron, actually. This waiting here at this point is going to lose so much speed. They might have to just let him go. He's already 2 seconds back. That 2 seconds turns into 5 if they wait on a downhill like this. No way. I think Cam's day is done, actually.
Yeah, this is actually a section. Sometimes people think of downhill as only recovery, but I reckon on this course, Nathan, the downhill is actually a really big opportunity. And that opportunity starts probably about 5 meters before you go over the KOM, because if you can surge over that KOM and carry that speed, we did see their speed in the high 60s was 3 or 4 kilometers an hour already faster than the other straight away. And that, by the time you get to the bottom of that climb, that is quite a big gain. And it is a perfect example here, actually, because they've lost a rider, and look at how far back he is. Look at that gap, and over the top, there was only a couple of meters in it. So what we have seen is an absolute textbook example of how to descend quick and how to make up the time there. Jeffers, his heart rate was super high going over the top. It has dulled down a bit now, but unfortunately, quite a solid gap. 14, 15 seconds within the space of about 1.5 kilometres there. So it's not fortunate for him there. For Jeffers, that's a bit of a bummer, but I think he's done a pretty good job so far. And again, I'm actually stunned. 15 seconds in that short distance, Nathan. That's, people should be paying attention.
Well, it gives you exactly the kind of idea of how much time could be lost or gained there, right? I mean, it wasn't like Jeffers didn't get into Super Tuck on the downhill. I mean, you know, the reality of the snowball effect of the group, though, is definitely a thing, but at the same time, that's not going to give you that full 15 whatever seconds that was gained there. Maybe 5 of that or something. But yeah, super awesome reality of how to make the descents. They showed us how those little jumps into the orange numbers over and over again. Snowball that on the front. Now Laverick is on a roll. It looks like 6.7 watts per kilogram right now. I said over the top that, perhaps he was saving a little bit of something. There's something you really called out there when you pointed at the heart rate out there, Kate. And now you see him up in this 6.7, pulling the team along on this little bit of a drag race section in the second half of the course.
Yeah, I reckon you nailed it. I think there's a bit of a mentality about the strategy you've got for a team's time trial too. Perhaps Jeffers, his job was just to get to the top of the climb, because he certainly backed off, hesitated a little bit, and that's when that massive gap opened up. And similarly, I think we saw Ed Laverick. He was so controlled. He wasn't pushing at the front up that climb, even though he's a really good climber, certainly by the numbers. But he's paced it really well, and his heart rate is now actually considerably higher, even though they're on the flat land. So I think their team strategy is pretty robust here, and each rider certainly appears to be playing quite a determined individual role. So I'm liking how these lads are going.
One last thing on the team, and we'll move over but I mean, look at the difference in rider talent and ability when it comes to section of the course. You just mentioned he's up into 173, 174 on the flatter section of course, and he was at 166 climbing amongst the same team members, right? Like, it really goes to show what kind of talent Ed Laverick is, that he is very much a specialist when it comes to pure threshold and pure climbing, and it's showing up here on this back end of the course.
Yeah, well, I'm of the sprint variety, so to see somebody go over such a difficult climb with such a controlled heart rate, I think that's super impressive. That he's got a lot of control. Losing control in terms of pacing is where they get into a lot of trouble. So we're watching Martins here over with Cryo RDT. They've got 5, so they've lost 1 along the way. They're at the 14K mark, so remember it's 20 kilometres in total. So it's not too bad that they've lost someone along the way. I think we will definitely see some big gains on that back end from any team that still can have 6. But the caveat on that, Nathan, is that if they have to wait for somebody, then that's probably going to cost them more time than they may gain in those final couple of kilometres. So down to 5, I think they're probably on a good thing there, because they are moving quite quickly.
Looking here real quick at the split times, 8:07, 8:10, 8:13. That's the top times. The Cryogen, their brother team there at 8:14, 8:16 with Vision EMEA. That was at the 6 kilometer mark. So Priority Team Men are currently challenging BZR Sports Solid esports team Red, and that is your top team. So they've showed up to race. They've got a 3-second gain at the 6 kilometer. We don't have the 10 kilometers in just yet for the top times. Put a refresh on this board and see if I can get an idea of where that 10 kilometer is at. Happy to have the splits. We'll see how long they last for us here. Team Blue, BZR Solid Sport. That's a different team. Team Blue, they were in 10th place coming into this race here. If we can get 10 kilometer splits, it'll be interesting to see if Cryo DT, they went out too hot, and if BZR were Team Red were just kind of holding on. But I have a feeling that Cryo RDT, they are well known in the team time trial on Thursdays, and they've almost caught WLC, actually. They've almost caught the Wahoo Cold team. So look at them getting in the super tuck here, 58 kilometers per hour, heading downhill now into the back end of this course. And that's the battle at the front end of the race now here between these 3. All on Tron bikes, interesting enough. All in the Cryo kit. So they've chosen the all-arounder rather than kind of just saying sprint bike, I don't even care situation that we did see from Laverick and a few others.
Well, some of the teams will have defined roles. I think we did see that over with the Wahoo Lacole, some very clear kind of sprinter climber roles. But Cryo, it does look a little bit more even across the board, actually. Zwift Power is great to kind of delve into the geeky numbers of it all, especially when you're new, and a lot of these riders are new to me tonight, but it does give you a fairly good picture of, what they may be capable of. At this point in the race, it's interesting to look at the time gaps and think the 10K mark is really telling. That's kind of at the top of the climb. But what we saw with Wahoo Lacole and how much time a rider can lose over the top of that climb, I actually think that's the more critical couple of kilometres. So that 16K time check will be a very interesting one, because that will show not just whether they survived over the top of the climb, but whether they could regroup and keep that momentum going. The final 4 kilometres, dare I say, Nathan, there's not a lot to lose or gain in that period. That's possibly the least critical out on course. That might be a bit controversial, but we haven't seen too many fireworks in that last couple of K. It's like they're working together well, or they're not. It hasn't really seemed too important.
I mean, I think in the back end of the course, so from my experience from doing the TTT, and I would say it's only controversial in so much as if you're doing everything right, no, there isn't a whole lot to gain or lose because of how flat these sections are. You can get these little half seconds on these little risers at this 3% gradient here, as you can see. You might be traveling a little bit faster than some of the others, but I mean, you're going to kind of be around that same if you've been consistent all the way through. If your team is falling apart and is just not gelling, though, and people are falling off the back, and you're really, really struggling to, have any kind of cohesion, everything can fall apart at this point, right? Like, this is where monstrous amounts of time can be lost if you lose a rider, somebody that is punching off the front, you get some disorganization. But if you've kept it fairly consistent, at this point, there isn't going to be a whole lot to gain or lose. You've kind of set your time in, and it's pretty much just full gas to the finish line with only about 2K to go. You're essentially setting everybody up for a sprint over and over again.
Yeah, it did occur to me as I said that there's probably some riders who have smoke coming out of their ears and might be listening and thinking, what does this bird know about the end of a team's time trial? I do appreciate it is very difficult out there. It is one of the more brutal events. When we were doing APAC, Anna Russell, she always talks about it so romantically, but refuses to actually race them herself because for her it's one of her least favourite events. But I think when you can nail a team's time trial, it is so satisfying. And it's very unifying for the team as well when they can pull off a really good technical performance, even forgetting the speed for a second. Let's just take a quick look at these team standings, because this is what we're expecting here. Now, BZR Sports Solid Esports Team Red, they've got a fairly solid lead. Not a perfect record on 78 points as opposed to 80, but that's a pretty big gap they've got. And then it's quite tight between Fusion, World Elite Zwifters, and DBR RT. So let's keep an eye on where those three come out today.
Yeah, and quick little mention here. I know we've been focused on Crowd T, but it's because they've had such a stellar ride out here. They brought 15 seconds back to the WLC Wahoo Coal team. Laverick is hammering toward the front there, 7 watts per kilogram, as you can see. We move up to them, and Hamlet here for just a moment. They're about to finish up their left-hand turn in just a moment. So straight here into a left-hand turn, a little bit of grind uphill for a sprint finish. Uphill at about 6-7% gradient here. But Priority T bringing that 15 seconds back with one of the top teams that we know of out here. But as we saw in the splits early on, the splits have died, everybody, just so everybody knows. We'll see if we can get them back up. This time of day, Zwift Power is under a lot of stress. But the reality of Priority T at 64 points there in 5th place, they get a win out here today. If they held on to that top time all the way through each one of those check marks and throw it across the finish line, that's going to bump them up pretty well. BZR, though, it's going to be 20 points and 19 points different, probably, if BZR do their usual. So it'll only bump them up ahead of probably Wes or maybe DBRRT, but it'll be a good solid attempt at getting onto the podium here into week number 5.
Well, I've liked that we haven't seen many gaps open up. Usually on a course like this in a team's time trial, I would expect at least a couple of pressure points around the course where they do start to look quite messy, and you're thinking, come on, this is a really critical moment to all get back together. We've actually seen really good form so far across the board. So gold star effort all around there. These guys, they'll come in at a fairly high speed, remembering it is slightly uphill before they tip over that line there. So a big ride from Cryo RDT to finish that off quite neatly. And again, we've got Fusion here, and they're looking quite neat as they sprint into these final sections. Nathan, look, I'm not the fashion police, but I've got to say, I never understand why one rider in a team
He's a
wears a
national
different
champion.
jersey. Is
He's a
it? Is
national
it
champion.
okay? All right, then I'll give him that. I'll
Alexi
absolutely give him
Kalman is
that.
the current national champion of
Yeah, Spot
Denmark.
the new
So
girl in the EMEA league. So sorry about that, mate. I'll get onto that for next week. Well, I actually
that was
think
a
we've
great
just set a
call
bit
out.
of a we've set a criteria though, right? If you're in a different jersey and you can't say you're a national champion, then then
Then
I
what are you
say, come on,
doing?
fellas.
What are you
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
there?
yeah. What are you doing? Come on, you can dress the same. You can coordinate.
Yeah, and that Fusion ECT is one of the top teams too. It's good to see them out there hammering away. It looked like they were going to hold on to a top split time as well. We are jumping over to the EMEA East 2. I will be jumping back in with the East 1 in just a moment, though. But we're just jumping in with the DWRTs here. We'll give an idea of what their standings are for just a moment. The women, they're going to be getting out on course here in 25 minutes. We'll take a look at their current standings in just a little bit as well. Again, apologies on the data, everybody. It's just Zwift struggling here at this point. But DWRT, we're going to get an idea of where people are and how they're going, though, mainly from what's going on screen now at this point. Until we do get some more data coming through, it does look like Hodges, DWRT, Gridnef, and then DM here from Belgium. 19 seconds back to the DZR team, the Danish Zwift riders. 18 seconds now. They're in the back end of their course. It looks like they've kept things together, but only 4 riders left here. And I do believe they've started with 5 or 6. So obviously taking that tactic, Kate, that we've talked about, being the sacrificial lamb a little bit. We've heard of, well, at least I spoke about that on the course recon. That's what it feels like, is you're absolutely sacrificing yourself perhaps and then just left off the back. It is a good tactic, though, if there's no more matches left for a rider. And you just end up saying, okay, I'm going to put one last ditch effort. Maybe they do it over the top of the climb. Maybe, through this back end of the course. And then you only got to finish with 4. So having, because there's only so many pulls left. And this is something I think a lot of people might not understand about a team time trial if they're newer to it, is that the more riders you have, that's an extra 30 seconds of rest each turn, right? So once you lose a rider, you've just lost recovery time. But because you're in the back end of the course, you're only going to have 1, maybe 2 pulls left. That recovery time doesn't become as crucial, and that's why you would maybe put the afterburners on, let somebody just throw on that nitrous oxide and then drop themselves.
That is absolutely spot on, because there's a lot of different tactics you can take into a team's time trial, but something that I've experienced from when I started racing team time trials from a pretty young age, actually, is if you're in the wrong team, and I don't mean in terms of physical ability, although that plays into it too, more in terms of personality, sometimes there can be a little bit of ego involved in the team strategy. And there's some riders who aren't really prepared to, as you delightfully phrase it, be the sacrificial lamb. I think that's very descriptive, by the way. And I feel like they're not really prepared to do that because they don't want to be the one that finishes off the back. But actually, sometimes when we see the teams of 4, as you say, it could be because strategically they've set themselves up that everybody exhausts themselves and all 6 riders finish with absolutely nothing left in the tank. So we'll have to see where it rolls out in the overall time here. But, I think these guys are looking pretty good. Let's take a little look at the overall table, because it is pretty tight at the top between GFTB and Tugger's Caramello. That sounds like an Australian lolly, the Caramello Koala. So I might call them that. They're on 76 and 75 points at the top, and then 67 to 66 points, another tight race for the third spot on the podium there between FZR and the Zwift Kids and World Elite Zwifters number 3. So there's a couple of mini battles going on here as well. We're watching Bondi here from the Danish Zwift races. Nathan, what do you think about putting these numbers before their name in terms of defining order? Do you think that that's a tactic that seems to be working well for the teams? I feel like over in APAC we've had some mixed results with putting those numbers there.
It's a great question, because I question it myself a lot, being someone who participates in these very often. Things are mayhem out there. And so the reality of not having a dynamic setup, you have to be here at this time and have to be here at this time. I do like it in the idea that some of the teams don't, some team members don't understand how important it is to stay in your order. If you didn't know this, in Zwift, it recognizes what kind of watts per kilogram you are at, what kind of watts per kilogram the rider in front of you is at, and you actually have to give a little bit extra watts per kilogram to get past the rider, unless your speed is enormously higher than the other rider. It kind of goes, no, you don't actually want to get by. And so if you're not in the correct order and you have to go past 2 or 3 riders to get back onto the wheel because it's going to be your turn or whatever it might be, you can end up really hurting your teammates by making them work extra to get to the front and put that speed on. As we have a little bit of kick here from DZR to the finish. Great finish by them. But, I think that those numbers then that you were speaking to will give you an idea of, oh, I need to be on number 2's wheel, or I need to be on number 3's wheel, and trying to find that wheel again, being in that right order rather than just, blobbing up. That can really help your other riders to not have to waste efforts to push their avatar by. At the same time, if that becomes too rigid and somebody just can't take a pull and you don't have a DS telling you something, you just end up going slower. So, it's a little bit of both, I think, when it comes to that. You have to have the right order. At the same time, you have to be dynamic, and you kind of have to have a team captain, a DS, somebody saying, no, we're changing it up right now. Here's the plan. Make it happen.
It's funny you say that, because I think in many ways it can be overwhelming, the amount of data you get in game, and especially when you're kind of learning the art of teams time trialing, you can go in with so many different things to try and concentrate on that you can get a bit lost in that. So I do like the idea of the numbers, where your only real focus is following number 2, number 3, etc. But you're right, when it goes pear-shaped, well, it can go spectacularly pear-shaped when people are not very agile in that ability. The other thing we saw, Nathan, was socks, different sock colours to indicate where they're at. Personally, I think that's a bridge too far in terms of intellectual capacity when you're at a super high heart rate. But it's interesting the different methods people go to try and get the team a bit organised.
Yeah, and well, I think with the sock color situation is the fashion police have been out a lot lately. And so if you're not wearing the right, if you're not wearing I even get messages in the middle of my TTT and Martin's like, dude, why aren't you looking right? Like, you never have the right jersey on, Nathan. What is your problem? So, and so the sock color thing, and also having like an extra thing to look at, because when your head is down and you're drooling and sweating everywhere, and it's like you look up for 1 second and you're like, you just notice one thing on screen, right? And you don't want to have to study too much, especially if it's in the back end of the race. So I can kind of understand why maybe, but then you have to put the tall socks on. It's kind of like this trade-off. Short socks, tall socks, Kate. I mean, fashion versus being able to spot the socks, that is a reality too.
Whoa. I'm going to hold you right there, Nathan, because you just indicated that you either had to go for long socks and sacrifice fashion, or short socks and not be able to see them. But you're a mountain biker. See, this is what happens when you have a mountain biker on the crew. Long socks are all the rage. They're what the cool kids are wearing.
Oh, man. Maybe
I'm not
circa
cool
2012, circa 2012. I don't know. Like, I remember some Trek socks.
I just completely missed a fashion there? Because that is possible.
2012. I remember having these one long. We're not going to go there. Okay. I mean, there was some horrid, but they were like almost knee highs. I mean, they were like, it was like a rave. And I think Trek had one go at it where they just went a little too far in the marketing team. And I literally was like, felt like I was wearing pantyhose or something. Like, it was, so
yes, well, let's hope that doesn't come back if that is the case. Is this am I watching 2 riders missing at least 2 other riders here? Is that what we're looking at for Strata?
I think
here
that
with
these 2 guys, they have I think they got dropped off. I have a feeling that this was a sacrifice here, is what ended up happening with this team. And they are being chased by GFTBE. So I have a feeling that these are a lot of the teams that have gotten caught here, is what's going on, because we're in the back end. 2 guys here finishing up their race here in the East 2 Division 1 right now. Now, Kate, these are all teams that do have an opportunity, though, to make it into the playoffs here. So these are the top end teams, the playoffs that are going to be happening in round 9 and 10. That only the top, I believe it's 18 teams, are going to make their way into that.
So last season we had 10 normal season races and then the playoff. This season it's a bit more streamlined. So we have 8 weeks of racing and then we have this. So, Nathan, it's going to be quite a big weekend in what Anna last night called a bit of a shootout for that chance to move up to Prem Division.
Yeah, so we're going to have normal racing all the way through rounds 7 and 8 of the Zwift Racing League. And then there's going to be a shootout. There's going to be playoffs with points race and TTT on a weekend, Friday and Saturday, March 5th and 6th. The top teams, as you can see from Division A1 all the way across from Americas all the way to APAC, will be happening. It's going to be pretty much a 14 max. Sorry about that. Max of 14 teams will get across into that. And then in the women's side of things, and then the 3 teams that battle it out at the top end of that shootout / playoff will be going into the Premier Division. And on the women's side, as you can see, across all of the regions, it will be a maximum of 8 teams selected from those top A1 divisions. So it'll be pretty great. We are looking to get some more images here to coming on in from the East 2 at this point. The women, it's got we've got about, I think it's a 15-minute break here till the start of the women's team. I do believe we have some live data and results coming up here in just a moment, Kate. Kate, we again, Zwift Power, a little bit of struggle here, but some good battles going on out on course. I think that a lot, we're halfway through, speaking to that playoff situation, we're halfway through, and things have kind of, at the top end, 1 or 2 teams, I think, have kind of said, okay, we just got to show up consistently, but there's still some teams with a lot to play for at this point. And I think a lot when we think about strategy and just staying consistent and trying to have those breakthrough races.
Yeah, consistency is a massive part of it. And when you do look at the playoffs, it's very good to note that there is a team's time trial in there. So even if they turn up some weeks without their top squad, even if, some guys are a bit tired, sick, not interested, insert reason here for not being on your A game, I think every time they line up is still an opportunity to fine tune things and tweak things. And actually, for some of the teams at the top of the table, Nathan, if I was their team director, I would be using this as an opportunity to say, okay, normally we all wear purple socks and we go off that, or we have numbers in front of our names and we try that. Let's this week try something a little bit different. Let's wear headbands and instead have a conversation on Discord and just different ways to communicate, because I think in a team's time trial, communication, that is the big part that can really bring it completely undone. So the teams that aren't taking the opportunity within these general racing league weeks to tweak that, I really think they're missing out, because you've got to try something different. I don't want the teams to be too conservative, especially the ones who are looking like they'll safely get through to those playoffs. I think now is the time where I want to see them playing around with something. And, even if it means they finish a bit further down on the chart for the week, but they maintain their overall position, I reckon, fortune favours the brave in this situation.
I thought for a moment there, I thought you were trying to suggest that headbands made you faster, Jane Fonda style. For a moment there, I was like, wait a second. So we're gonna change up the fashion and get faster is what's gonna happen here. But no, 100%. I think that the communication, that getting into, and that's one of the main things that we've been talking about, and one of the things also that bring people back to Zwift racing in the TTT, and what made the TTT so popular, I think, is the culture that is created around a team. And so, really taking advantage of that online communication, getting together in a Discord channel. One of the coolest things after the team time trial for me is that after the race, it's kind of like that. There is some cool bonding that's going on. Great job, all you guys. Wow, that was so awesome. Everybody's kind of encouraging. Or if it didn't go well, you might be yelling at each other a little bit. But, there's still a reality, though. Or maybe you never want to talk to each other again because it totally got messed up. No, but there is a reality, though, that you really do get that culture of team that comes together to that. So not only is there an advantage that you were speaking of there, though, Kate, a huge advantage to having those comms, knowing who's supposed to be where and when, and people trying to get those extra few points in the back end in order to get those upgrades at any category level are most, they can really take advantage of that, getting a good DS, doing some studying as well. I did the course recon. It was very over the, top surface bullet pointed on World of Zwift last week. And there are some more in-depth, though, studies that people can do on that to know exactly how to go, where to go. And if you do have a DS, or somebody who's thinking about being a DS of a team, definitely check out the TTT, some of the past TT broadcasts that we've had over on Zwift Community Live. And then also head on over to YouTube, do some searches. Stars to Pros Closet put one out. There's a few other people that are starting to put them out there. There's lots of links to them over on the Facebook groups here for the Zwift Racing League as well as the WTRL TTT. So definitely, I think there's going to be some going to the whiteboards. Anna, people are going to be copying Anna and her whiteboard, I think.
And Anna's what she needs to copyright the Zwift whiteboard somehow. Make us a smart board or something.
Sell Zwift
It'll go
whiteboards.
wild.
We'll just we'll just start selling specifics. They come with like preloaded tactics.
Yes.
They come with preloaded Zwift tactics from Anna
Actually,
Russell.
that's not a bad idea. She could be our first Zwift whiteboard millionaire. What an interesting thought. We used to do it on the track for Teams Pursuit, which is essentially a very short Teams time trial. Is when it was completely nailed and everything was really smooth, the coach would say to just one of us, "You need to throw a cat amongst the pigeons. I want you to bomb through," which is a good Aussie term for surging through, and just see how everybody reacts to that. Because what I've noticed, and this is a pretty brutal course to expose any weakness amongst the teams, but it's all well and good on a perfectly flat and civilized team time trial to be really smooth, everybody's perfect. But it all changes sometimes with just one rider having a bad day or one rider surging through a little bit. And I think you almost have to disaster plan those scenarios, and only then can you kind of lift it up to that next level.
Yeah, and that's, having that plan in place, knowing what you're going to do at that point, and then having that person, though, there. Because I've been in those situations where somebody just throws the cat among the pigeons, everybody scatters, and everyone just kind of looks at each other like, what are we going to do? And a lot of times I'm the one who's like mad at everyone for scattering. So I just go to the front and I end up being a second cat among the pigeons. And I'm like, whatever, somebody's got to do 6 on the front now. Let's go, and put my head down, and then everybody's just like, well, what? And then everyone will just follow that guy, and nobody knows who's going to go next. So definitely having somebody to organize things then and put that master plan down is absolutely huge. We do actually have results coming in for EMEA E1 Division 1. I don't have anything for E2 just yet, but we can take a look at those real quick. It does look like I thought that this was going to be challenged here, but it does look like we do have BZR at the top with a little surprising form. I thought that Cryo DT were challenging, but they showed up on the back of this course with a 5.8 here, Kate.
Ooh-wee, that is a pretty solid day out. Good on them. We saw actually quite a lot last night in APAC. Some high watts per kg, but lower down on the standing because those lumps on the course caused a bit of mayhem. But not in this case. That is a really commanding 5.8, jeepers. They've got 15 seconds over Fusion ECT. Also 15, that's a very tight finish between second and third. But look at that power difference. Fusion ECT, DBR, RT, essentially they're on the same time, just half a second in it. But look at that, that's 0.6 watts per kilo differential average. So that's pretty significant.
Hey, real quick, talk about an organized team. Like, that has to be some serious organization. DBR, RT, and Fusion. I mean, you rarely see that close. You never see it that. I don't know if I've ever seen it that close with that much of a watt per kilogram difference, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, it looks to me, we'll have to delve into the numbers, but you've obviously got some climbers there for DBR who were able to kind of duck up that midway KOM, that steep, nasty one, quickly and efficiently, because And then they would have made some time games in order to keep that low. But that is interesting, isn't it? Some more expected numbers here for the Cryo RDT men in fourth, World Elite Zwifters in fifth, Vision EMEA in sixth, World Elite Zwifters again in seventh. The Sport Solid Team Blue, they are in eighth, Cryogen Col de la Loz in ninth, and Foudre Exo in 10th. Now, I do find these numbers really interesting because for the most part, Nathan, people talk about the higher the watts per kg, it's like a badge of honour. Like, and we average these watts per kg. But for a team to average more than a full watt per kg below another team and still be right there in contention, that's actually really remarkable. That is very, very efficient. I would love to hear what their strategy was and look at those numbers a little bit more carefully.
Yeah, I think the reality of the gamification and how to play this game is definitely starting to show when it comes to these kinds of discrepancies that we do see here. Now into the Bs here, it is going to be Cryogen Zancolan. Did I get it right that time? They're followed up by SC Reimer there in second place. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. Kurtzberg Honeybees in third. The Cops, it looks like they were able to cruise right on by. Ran all the stoplights and hit in for fourth. It's going to be SC Heimdall now in fifth. Belgian Zwift Riders Lions in sixth. Wolfpack ZRGR2 in seventh. Innovation Aliens in eighth. SZ Team Sweden Forsett in ninth. And it's Colville Wheelers CC in 10th place. Pretty close at the top there for the top three. Kirchmer Honeybees and SZ, they definitely had a battle on their hands for second place, but Cryogen walking away with it, it looks like, in the B category. Let's head over to the C's.
All right, we've got the Belgian Zwift Rider Rhinos. That's a mouthful. They took the win there. Only 4. Is that the number of riders, Nathan? 4 there?
Yeah, only 4. I think that's starters. Yeah, that's a solid result.
Yeah, so that's very impressive. That means that all 4 really turned up and worked very well as a unit there to take the win. Evo Core 1, they were 15 seconds adrift. That actually seems like a fairly consistent time gap between first and 7 so far. Vikings Urdasil, I feel like there needs to be a Scandinavian teach us how to say that properly. In third, the Mercenaries in fourth, Bishmaster Pro in fifth, IRL, PSBR Sharks in sixth. And if somebody can jump in and tell me what the PSBR stands for, I'd love to know that. SZ Vale in 7th, the Wolfpack ZRG R27 in 8th, Cryogen Issaran in 9th, and the Belgian Zwift Rider Rhinos bookending it again in 10th. So that actually doesn't look too dissimilar to the overall table, so some fairly expected results there.
Just going to check and see if we do have the D category results. The live data I'm getting information is still struggling a little bit. We do have a little bit here. Now, don't have the full all the way through, so this is just a preliminary, not official results coming on through here. Kirschmiller Brummelbees, though, coming through at 2.4 watts per kilogram, 37.35. Z España Castora is there in second place, founded by Vikings Asgard and Kirchmer Junior Bees. I wonder if that's actually a team. Let us know in chat if somebody from Kirchmer is around, because if that is junior riders out there hammering away in a TTT, I mean, that like seriously warms my heart. Like, to think that there's a group of junior riders getting organized, and it makes me think of like a bunch of kids playing Fortnite on Discord, hammering away like. And now they've kind of taken that gaming over to and hammering away here in this esport. I think that's absolutely awesome to see if there is a junior teams. And I do hear that there are a lot of junior teams starting to take this up to a point that there might even be some talk of having junior specific leagues in racing. I don't know if we're going to get there anytime super soon, but there has been some chatter about that. So that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and right away here, Kate, we're going to take a look right off the bat here at the women's standings as we're about to jump into that race.
All right, Project Beast Mode. I love the Beast Mode crew from APAC, so I'm a bit excited if that's a female version of that. That's unreal. They are on the top of the table. If the points are anything to go by, it probably is. Turbo Women in second, BRT Atomic Kittens in third, Socks for Watts sitting in fourth. Aeonian RT sitting in fifth. Cryogen Stelvio, one of the most beautiful climbs in the world, the Stelvio, sitting in sixth. The Bristol Flyers in seventh. Z Sunrise in eighth. Socks for Watts, the polka dot bombs. Oh, that's a cool one. They sound like good, fun socks, actually. Sitting in ninth in the draft. ZRL, they are sitting in 10th. So Project Beast Mode, love to know a bit more about that too for anybody watching, and who the riders are involved there, because if the fellas are anything to go by, they are serious business.
Yeah, real quick, Kate, on this, specifically the EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa West 1, this is the who's who of the women right here when it comes to this. When it comes to esports, I recognize all of these team names, these brands. Well, Project Beast Mode is really, well, if we were talking about the cat amongst the pigeons here, boom, bombshell, because Turbo, we're talking Leah Thorvaldsen, we're talking, like top end racers. Turbo's been around from some of the first in real life esports events that have ever been happening. One of the top teams, BRT, Atomic Kimmins, same things. Then Socks for Watts, we're talking Rachel Elliott. Some of these, top end teams as well. She's kind of a leader on that team and one of the longest standing esports riders and women out there. So, and then Aeonian RT, a branch off team that came out of another one of the top esports teams, is now also here. So this is super, super competitive at the top end of the A's here for the women's EMEA. They're just about to get on course. The first team is just about to start, it looks like. With SC, but now this is going to be the current standings for what we're about to watch. Socks for Watts, SBR Cake there, followed up by CCY Race Like a Girl Kalini. It's going to be SWW Bollinger for third, Cryogen Fur, Belgian Zwift Riders Cats 1, BVRT in sixth, WTRL Watts Up in seventh, R3R Bewitched in eighth, Ireland is probably what that stands for, I believe. Velo Vixens in ninth, and then RCC Women B are currently standing in 10th. A battle at the top, 3 points difference between Sisu and Socks Watts. And in the C's.
All right, in the C's, we've got the Aeonian Chicas. They are leading the way ahead of Z Sunrays in second, TFC Storm in third. The Revo Galaxies are sitting in fourth. Cryogen Telegraph in fifth. Socks for What's Not. Goodness me, there's a tongue twister for you. That sounds like a voice exercise right there in sixth. The Revo Rolos in seventh. Herd of Cougar Chaos. That's very descriptive, isn't it? In eighth. Fearsome in ninth. And Bella Bello sitting in 10th.
Let's see if we have some D category. And we do here with the Herd of Dolphins at the top at 79 points. BRT Blazing Kittens. And then it's going to be Revo Rebels sitting in third. 2 point difference back to Herd Dolphins 2. And then Zwift Scotland in fifth at 60 points. KV Gross there in sixth. And then RCC Women D in seventh. WTRL Drafting Dinos UK 1 in eighth. Ireland Serrano Hams keeping the hot there 50. And then GC Spokes and Mirrors there. I love the Serrano Hams. I mean, this is such a great name. Like, seriously. So that is the current standings for the Women's West. As we jump right down into the racing is just getting out on course here. Actually, we were just about to jump right down into the racing. And we'll see if we can get some images here flying for us in just a second, actually. Kate, so...
Well, I think it...
Go ahead, Kate.
I was going to say, it goes to show how our brains work differently, because you see IRL and you go straight to Ireland. I see IRL and I'm like, in real life. And when I see in real life Serrano Hams, I start to get excited. So these team names are certainly very entertaining. I've got a list going now because, I'm a person who loves a notebook. I've got Bollinger and Cognac. They're also the names of other teams. And also the other one I noted down here was Herd of Dolphins, because I didn't realise that dolphins actually travelled in herds. Is that the collective?
Do they call it? It's a school. Is it? Okay, now is it a school? Or because dolphins are a mammal, like...
I thought my default is school, but I'm going to have to Google that and figure that out. I'm questioning myself now.
That's an interesting one. Is it a school? Because are they officially a fish? Or, oh God, okay. I'll leave that one.
I don't know. We're tackling the big issues here on the EMEA.
Huge issue. Chat, help us out. We need to know our animal kingdom here. Class, phylum, I don't know what to do anymore.
Someone will know. Someone will, well, pardon the pun, but school us
It's a
on
pod.
what's
Aaron's
going
letting
on.
us know. Aaron's letting us know it's a
Oh,
pod. A pod. I don't
it's
know
a
if that's
pod.
actually right, but she's saying it's a pod of dolphins. It's a
It
pod
actually,
of
that does
dolphins.
sound right. That does sound right. A pod of dolphins chases a school of fish. That sounds legit.
Well, that's the whole point here. We just need to sound legit, I guess, is all that really matters. So it does look like Team SZ did take off first. Reinhold here. Now we are in with the women's EMEA. That's what we're looking at right now. West. This is the only, we only have West actually. It's named West just to have some naming on it there, but at the front end. But West 1, Division 1 for the women. This is going to be quite the battle at the front end. Sox for Watts. Surprisingly, coming into this season, Sox Watts would have been the team that I would have been like, hey, watch out for them. They do not lose the TTT. I don't know if they've lost one TTT on Thursdays with the WTRL. I think in the last 30 or 40, well, I don't know, 30 weeks or so, something like that. They show up week in and week out, take the win by a pretty healthy margin. They have set almost every course record. But the reality is that a good part of their team is Hino, though, because it's a team that's come together of multiple teams to kind of create this super team on Thursdays. But because a part of their team is in the Premier Division riding for Hino, it goes to show how strong Hino is in that Premier Division, Kate, because you remove those riders, and now you've got Turbo and this new Beast Mode women's team showing up and saying, well, you don't got Hino there. We're going to challenge you.
Yeah, I like that they've kind of taken the opportunity to become specialists. I love that we even look at them and say, oh, we know them, they really know how to do their stuff. That in itself is a really robust strategy. I feel like some people turn up in the Zwift world and maybe in real life they've got some goods and they turn up thinking it'll just be super easy and they've got it nailed. So I actually really respect the teams who take a much longer term approach, because esports aren't going anywhere, folks. This is only the very beginning, I think, of what we're going to see. And there'll be a lot of people who look back. I feel like Nathan one day will be on season 147 of the WTRL, and there'll be people saying, oh, yeah, I remember I was there in the season 1 and season 2. Back in the good old days when they were arguing over socks and sock colour and sock height. I dare say even in season 147 we'll still be doing the same. But seriously, it is really great to see these teams kind of honing their craft. I think it also plays a really good role in developing riders coming through, because it does give them the opportunity to move on up, especially with a team in Prem League, but also to bring new riders in and give them a chance. I'm noticing on the rider screen we've got some power numbers that are fairly high, because to sit over 4 watts per kg up here fairly consistently is no easy task. So they're moving pretty smoothly, only small gaps opening up. But if they can keep it together, again, the 10K mark is the really critical part. So this is almost the taster before that big KOM, isn't it?
Yeah, taking a quick look here at, as they do get into this, little bit of a teaser here, as you were saying, a little bit of an uphill grind. This is the first test to kind of see where people are at. They brought 15 seconds back here. We've got M. Blaze here with the Pro UCI kit here. It looks like, so I'm going to do a little bit of research. I'm going to just completely admit my ignorance there. But Massey now making her way lower. Massey, definitely a name known. Team Draft, this is... So a little bit of background there for some of the newer viewers out there as well. Team Draft was what Turbo came out of. Team Draft was actually a long-standing team, also a team that's participated at a top level in a lot of the in real life invitationals early on in the world of Zwift esports and racing. And then Turbo branched out of that and became another team that was obviously at the top level as well. So Team Draft been around for a really long time, obviously showing up with a very strong women's team here out here today. They brought back 12 seconds, or actually almost 18 seconds here at this point to SZ, who is ahead of them. And it looks like they're very organized here with, it looks like Blaze here now, it looks taking over. Anytime it goes uphill, it seems to be the stronger rider here out of Canada.
Well, Anna and I slightly disagreed with this in the APAC in terms of techniques and ways to go fast in a team time trial. Normally, what we'd call the blob, which is what we're looking at here, when they're all kind of bunched together, isn't the best way to team's time trial. But what I definitely would say is on a course like this, when there is so much uphill, it can be an efficient way to get everybody through without burning too much. And sometimes, if you're single file, it's very easy to start dropping the wheel a bit and then you're gone. Whereas if you're all bunched up a little bit more, that draft effect does come into play a little bit more. So I'm liking what I'm seeing here, even though it might look slightly less traditional for a team's time trial. They're clearly moving pretty well because they're making quite considerable gains here. I think we'll see an overtake soon. And I'm actually noticing a Team Lungskog there, and that's a pretty famous name in cycling. Suzanne Lundskog was the women's road champion for a long time, so I'd be interested to know if there's an association there, because if there is, then these Swedish ladies are in very, very good hands. I love seeing the kind of expertise flow back through and the experience flow down. So yeah, somebody can jump on the chat and let me know if they're associated. They're moving pretty quick here. They're actually coming up to this overtake fairly quickly. Within the last kilometre, they've taken 9 or 10 seconds out of the socks for Watts. So it's hard to do an overtake on a climb, though, isn't it, Nathan? And there's a fair bit of etiquette involved. So they will have to make sure they surge right past and
Yeah, I want
don't
to
get mixed up altogether.
just jump on that here real quickly because draft, interesting enough, they have a solid gap here over their chasing team. So I'm wondering if their seating is not representing where they're actually standing when, like, where their power is at. It's gonna where their standings are at, yes, but maybe they had a couple of bad weeks or something like that because they are a top team. They have an in-kit game. They've shown up with some serious talent here. And I'm just getting the feeling that perhaps this is going to be a little bit of a breakthrough ride, put them on the map a little bit here more. I have a feeling this is going to be a top 10, if top 5 ride here coming from a team that started second out on the road, actually, which would put them at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the team standings as they get into they're about to start their climbing, the real serious part of their climbing here in just a moment. 10% gradient. There's a little kick here before they get into the official Queen of the Mountain. Now I am looking here. Adele Blaise Sonius said that this is the rider we're looking at here with the UCI Pro jersey. Anytime you do see that little orange jersey on the right-hand side, that is mean that they are an official UCI Pro on the road. Says that she discovered Zwift after a stubborn foot injury knocked her out in 2019. Still learning how to ride IRL and online, says. Current equipment, Elite, Doretto, Shimano Dura Ace, it looks like. Good to see her doing all of the updates over on Zwift Power as well. So cool to see Blaze here. Only level 20, only I put in quotes, level 25. It's a pretty high level. I mean, for teams that are this organized and this strong, a lot of times you do see something closer to 40s to 50s here. So very cool to see her though jumping in amongst the draft group.
Well, we've got Blaze, who you were just talking about. We've also got Blaze Sonius in that team, who I think has had a power outage because she just disappeared on 0 watts, is still on 0 watts, and is now over a minute behind. So that is a massive bummer to have a technical drop out and go back down to 5 within that first 10 kilometres. That's a real blow. Look at her. She's just hanging out on the climb there. I'm fairly sure she hasn't just double-clicked and decided that she's over it. So that is a real bummer for her, and hopefully
maybe
can
in
get
Discord,
that
like taking some organization perhaps at this point. I mean, that could be, like, all right, well, things are obviously not going well for me. I'm just going to give you all some encouragement and tell you what you could be doing at this point.
Exactly. Well, you know, I'm seeing as these seasons progress a little bit of days of our lives playing out in terms of some riders being poached to other teams, some riders being in a team one week and then just seemingly not turning up again. So I actually reckon there's a few fly on the wall moments going on in the background with a few little fisticuffs. I love it when it pops up on screen, when it almost escapes out of the safety of Discord and we actually see it pop up on screen. Usually it's lovely supportive words, but we have had some cranky ones turn up. They always make me laugh.
Cranky. I'm liking that. Yes, we definitely do. That's a nice way to put it. It's some cranky, a little bit cranky where it's showing up in the chat. That's for sure. RCC Upton, Kookaburra is here as well. Abbott, and then Smith toward the front. This is going to be the RCC crew. Rafa represented pretty well. They're under this drag here. This section, of course, here, it's for those that may be doing a little bit of recon. I did see some chat earlier that your APAC stream this morning with Anna was looked at a lot for recon and what people should be doing. This section, of course, really flat for quite a while. Definitely after that first little bit of an uphill, the next thing that they're looking for is going to be the Queen of the Mountain. Being disorganized here, that's not going to set you up well when it comes to heart rates. You know, people might not be thinking about the reality of organization giving you more rest, but that organization definitely not only brings the anxiety down when you feel like everything's under control, but everybody's taking an even turn and getting set up for that climb. That's going to really help you with the energy reserve, so everybody can just blob up and hit 6, whatever it might be, 6, 5, 4, whatever it might be that you've agreed upon as your common standard that you can climb at.
Yeah, I think the first, like this course can really be broken into sections. Definitely the first half and the second half, if not subsections within that. But they do need to all get very safely to that KOM. You can lose so much time when it ticks up a little bit there. Pardon me. It's very early morning here, Nathan, so I need a cup of tea to warm my voice up. Else I'll lose it. Yeah, they need to make sure that they get onto that climb in a fairly good order, because otherwise they can lose so very much just by a small acceleration. We've got Kookaburra there. In fact, if we're quiet for a second, we could probably hear the kookaburras outside my window because it is morning here in Australia. Beautiful birds that they are. So once they hit that climb, it's interesting to note, and you said that you think a lot of people use that APAC stream for a bit of a recon, is we haven't seen once tonight a really bad case of surging. Not a single incident of it. Isn't that notable? Because maybe the APAC riders were kind of guinea pigs in that way, because it was all over the shop. I think the term I would use was a dog's breakfast for a number of those teams. And so I think you do live and learn, and these recons can really be very important. So critical time here for RCC. Make sure you watch your powers there, ladies, because this is where the danger can really happen. Upton looks very, very comfortable at the front there, but she needs to just
Ooh, 195.
keep her eye on that pace.
That is a high heart rate. Oh my goodness. She's just a motivated woman at this point, I think is what's happening here. I mean, on the front and about to start this Queen of the Mountain, Upton, Kookaburra goes across 2 seconds now, getting a little bit disorganized. I was about to jump on the back of that comment of saying EMEA, very organized. Yeah, this is great. But now we've got this separation going on here and trying to get everything back together. Obviously, the agreed upon pace didn't work out too well there for a moment as Upton, maybe it was the TV time. I'm on TV. Let's go to the front.
They heard me and they said, we'll show her what organised looks like. Oh, dearie me. That'll teach me, won't it, to watch my tongue. They've come together a slight bit more, but there's a very big problem here because they only have 3. So they are going to have to really take the pedal off the accelerator a little bit there, because we need to see this come back together. Bardovskova, she is bridging across there, but at the cost of Abbott, who's starting to lose the wheel. A really critical time, again, is over the top. So they need to make sure not only that Bardovskova can get back on, but they can shelter her over that KOM and then down that descent. A good chance for a power tuck, perhaps, for all of them to regain their breath, because if Upton's heart rate is still over the 190 mark, I dare say she might be sucking back some oxygen and might do with a couple of 100 meters of recovery.
I think that Bardovskova, I hope I got that right there, but this is going to be Lithuanian rider, actually, level 23. And great to see she's got 46 races under her belt. And she was trying to bring Abbott back. It was a little bit of a risk, I think, because she obviously was strong enough, it looked like, if she held on to the wheel to be amongst her front riders here at this point, put the risk in, went back to Abbott, was pulling 4.5. Abbott falls off, and now things are a little bit broken up. It was a risk. I think it may have been a smart risk to take, trusting that Abbott could hold on to the wheel. It ended up not happening. Now they're going to have to hold up a little bit more again. This is not a point where you can let a rider go. You have to have 4 across the line. So now it kind of puts them in a tough spot if she can't close this gap on her own.
Yeah, this is a pretty tough spot. This is, I mean, it is almost funny, Nathan, that this comes off the back of us talking about how beautiful and technical they were looking. Looks like we've had our own slight technical. There we have spoken about the Zwift slight outages, but we're back, so that's great. Just a moment there. That's quite fitting, actually. I think that's exactly how Dovskova, if I'm saying that correctly, is feeling. This is a real danger point.
Black screen. Just black screen is what she
Black screen. That's exactly what she is. She's feeling. That's like, yes, that is perfect. Kookaburra needs to ease off a little bit here, getting a little bit excited because Upton and Smith, they're not too far behind, but there is that 9-second gap opening up and another 20 seconds back to Abbott. So take a deep breath, ladies. Kookaburra, back that off a little bit. Let's see if we can get them back together. Because to this point, they're actually looking pretty good and pretty neat. So I'd like to see them regroup a bit. Otherwise, it'll be a very long, inefficient, and for nothing final 10 kilometres for these guys. Of course, they do have to finish with 4 across the line. That's where the time is taken.
Going back to Socks for Watts. Watts up here. Now hammering away. This is going to be... there are actually going to be 3 Socks for Watts, I believe, in this A, because Watts up is also... And then we do have Polka Dot Bombs here. Unless I've got this the naming incorrect here. If this is going to be another team here, not a Socks for Watts, but... It is going to be Watts up. WTRL, excuse me. WTRL Watts up, not Socks Watts. That's why they're in the yellow kit. I should have recognized that immediately. Taylor here trying to chase down their teammate, from what I can see. Lou, Taylor. A little bit of separation happening here at this point. And then it is going to be the Socks for Watts. This is going to be the Polka Dot Bombs now. Making the way over the top. It's going to be Jackson, followed up by the Pain Train, McCann, Robinson, S-Child. They did a really good job here keeping things together with, it looks like 5 riders, actually. I don't think they've dropped anybody off at this point. They are being chased down by Canyon Dev, who have really put their names on the map. I love this women's development team. Awesome to see. Udman's here. We've got Simmons is here as well. Lytle. Solid riders. They are a little bit separated. They've got some amazing mentors, though. Higginbottom. Great to see her as well. Great stories coming out of this team. They've got to let up just a little bit, though. Let Lytle back on terms. Hopefully she can kick and actually be the jump through them that could perhaps get them up to speed. If she's got a little extra, it would matter so much for the team right now at this point. She's just going to get barely on. It looks like 5 watts per kilogram real quickly, and they're going to get right up to speed. Oh, it was perfect timing. 1 more meter, that would have been a lot of time lost.
Yeah, that was a real danger point. I was watching that almost with a bit of a cringe on my face because an extra metre or 2 and we could have seen that 15-second blowout like we saw happen in the men's just earlier when they went over the top and that gap just burgeoned very quickly. 4, they're still down to 4 because they lost a couple on that climb in Hunter. She's now 34 seconds back, so that's a little bit of a bummer, but largely they've done a pretty good job because I was going to say the Polka Dot Bombs, they're the neatest looking team we've seen so far over the climb. They've done a really good job. But what we see then with the Canyon development, Pain Train from the Polka Dot Bombs has lost a bit over the top there, but they went over in really good shape amongst them. I think, though, that Canyon development, they were a little bit messier over the top with that small gap opening up. But I think that's because they're pushing it a little bit harder and actually traveling a little bit faster.
That's a good point. The risk there looks like it may be worth the reward here at this point with the 15-second gap. They have brought time back to Socks for Watts. So Canyon Dev, they are doing a great job, it looks like here. Trying to see if we've got a... Not sitting in the top 10 currently in the standings from what I can see. So we are working our way back here through the seedings. Bristol Fathers, as you can see, with Jay Hudson. They are on their downhill now at this point. At the front, it's going to be Enscombe with a little bit of a gap now. Look at this. What is going on here? Level
Yeah,
20.
you got to be
This,
careful with this.
no, I mean, what is going on with this kid? I mean, look.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is
well, I mean, then my comment holds true. You got to be
it
careful
holds
with
true
this. I mean,
100%.
look at them. They're all in different jerseys. Although, is this like the sock color thing? Like they want to be recognizable without using too much brain
This
power,
looks
and
like
so
it's
they
got
all
to be on purpose with how
go.
disorganized the kids are here, Kate. I mean, this looks like it's. I mean, some of the kits are like when it comes to like a single kit, they're just really all over the place with all the colors, just almost on purpose. It feels like they've done that in their team here at this point. Drop the rider off now. Russell needs 5.6 watts per kilogram, and it looks like Russell may be a newer rider, perhaps. They have they're on the opening Zwift kit here when it comes to the bike, the wheels, even the kit that they're wearing in game. So I'm getting an idea of Russell here and where she's coming from. Really cool to see if she is a new Zwifter, just jumping into her first team time trial. Talk about getting right into the deep end, though, of Zwifting, right? You get into it, and you're like, oh, a group ride or a group workout. Oh, I'll try a race out, Crit City, whatever. But,
Ooh.
I mean, right into TTT, though, that is a whole different story.
Yeah, and in Div A, no less. So that is very impressive. It's good to remember because I think sometimes it gets spoken of so offhandedly which bike to choose. And, if you can choose the Tron or that gets debated. But we've got to remember that not everybody has access to every bike. So you only get the Tron when you've climbed 50,000 vertical meters and opted into that challenge as well, because that's a big caveat. I made that mistake. And also we've got in green, we can see the level 25 kit. Some of them will be up toward the 50, but I think in Russell we are seeing a newer rider there. Good on her. She's giving it a good crack. And, I always say, Nathan, that a bike can make a bit of a difference, but if you're getting dropped, you can't say it's because it's the bike you chose. I really think that, that's a little bit of a cop out, and I
That's
think
like a
this is a
call
pretty
out
good.
on me. Like I've never done that
Well,
before. No
sorry.
way. It's 100% the
No,
bike
I mean,
foot. That one time I got dropped, it had everything to do with the bike. So Fiona here, level
I think
8.
you know
Level 8 Zwifter. Oh, 100%. You're 100% right. But we're known for, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind after I get done with, well, what's my excuse today? If it didn't win,
Yeah.
what was my excuse today? There's got to be one or two.
It's definitely the traditionalist in me that is still adjusting to the esport world and the avatars and whatever. I'm certainly cut from the cloth a little bit of the old school toughen up, a bit of a changing philosophy in the sports world, I might say. But from the coaching that I used to receive to what they do now, it's a little bit softer approach now, which I think is altogether more appropriate. But every now and again, something will come out of my mouth, Nathan, that'll make you remind you of my generation. Nothing gives your age away quite like that. They're looking pretty good. Russell, is she on the front now? I'm impressed with this young lady. She's doing a very
So,
good job.
yeah, I wanna just point out here that Russell I'm seeing is a Bristol Flyer, I believe, in real life. So her Zwift profile, she has updated with a picture here for her profile, which is great to see. I do see the Bristol kit in there. So in real life, this is in real life club. So it looks like her clubs recruited her because her first race on Zwift was on January 30th. This is her first, like, this is awesome to see that she has jumped in here and is hammering away. I mean, maybe she's just updating her Zwift power perhaps here, but it's really great to see a newer Zwifter welcome. Level 8 only. I mean, that is very young to the Zwifting world. Absolutely great to see. And hammering in the A's amongst some of the top. This has got to be like a team ringer that they were like, we got to get Russell in here. We need some firepower to take the Bristol Flyers to the next level.
Yeah, I think so. So Fiona Russell, I'm also checking her out in the back end of Zwift Power. She's ridden lifetime on Zwift 353k, and that's all in the last 30 days. So all indicators are that not only has she only just started racing on Zwift, she's actually only just started riding on Zwift. So this has got to be one of the more impressive rides I've seen. This is a moment, Nathan. This is a moment because in a couple of seasons' time, she'll be smashing it. And we'll be like,
Also,
yeah, do you remember that first time we saw her on the mighty Metropolitan? So good on you, Fiona. I
100%. And
feel like we're
looking
a
here,
part of
speaking of brand
that.
new, right? We're talking about brand new riders here, Kate. Look at behind one of the longest standing beta users, Rachel Elliott coming by here with Socks for Watson, one of the strongest TTT teams we know of. Cassie Baldy, a former UK national champion of Zwift now as well. Despaz is on here. I mean, this is one of the top teams trying to catch them now at this point. So great to see, kind of this juxtaposition of the two. A level 8 Zwifter and one of the Zwifters that's got the most miles out on Zwift and has used the platform to come back from serious injury in her life, actually, and health complications. Riding now at this point, officially legally blind, but able to now race at the highest level out on this platform right now for Socks for Watts. Rachel Elliott, a legend amongst this. And Russell now probably going to be chasing her down as she gets that Zwift bug. She catches that and wants to hammer away out here with the Bristol Flyers.
Yeah, it certainly gets under your skin, doesn't it? I love the opportunity that Zwift gives for some of the para athletes to race amongst it. I think that's really cool. And in fact, some of the athletes at the In Real Life Aussie Championships last weekend were seeing if Zwift could work on their avatars for some of the paras to indicate some of their different bodies and disabilities, which I think is pretty cool if we could get that as well. You know, the one thing, you made a comment earlier, and because I'm a notebook and a pen kind of person, I wrote it down with a few exclamation marks. And you said that at this point, all you're really doing is sweating and drooling everywhere, which made me laugh. And I think that's actually what all of them are doing. So whether you are Fiona Russell and it's your first team's time trial, or whether you're Elliot and you've done this a million times, at the end of the day, they're all having that same experience of sweating and drooling all over the place. A bit of an overtake here, need to make sure it's not too messy, so they need to make it clean. And out of courtesy, accelerate straight past. They don't have too far left to go. Take a little bit of a look at the course for a refresh here. So that high point and that time check is really at the top of that KOM at the midway mark. So 20 kilometres with a 400-metre lead in, so 20.4 altogether. Fair to say that the first half is a bit harder than the second half in terms of the terrain, but I think that profile is probably a bit easier to get your head around than the other one, where you look at the 1.1 kilometres averaging 5.7%, because that's slightly inaccurate.
Yeah, you're looking at 17.3 in so far. As you can see, it's actually mainly downhill from this point forward for the riders. You see these little bumps here and over, but you can gain a lot of speed through here. Elliott now to the front, 6.4 watts per kilogram. Hammer coming for her right now. 4 Socks for Watts. They're going to be finishing up their race here in just a moment. Interesting enough to see Project Beast Mode that we saw in the standings just a moment ago, right? They're at 77 points. Socks for Watts, WTF here. They are at that 68, it looks like right now. And so, they, I think, they'll have a good, 69 points. They're Aeonian RT at 68. Beast Mode, though, if I look back, 42 seconds back. Now, my question is, who started first here? Is Beast Mode made that much time up on them at this point? Because that would be absolutely amazing if they've done that, because they were the top seed. They might just be out here catching everybody. Beast Mode, again, this is a team that's shown up. They came out of the Jason Osborne won on the men's side of things for the World Championships. The coach of that team, as well as a whole bunch of other German riders that have I think all kind of knew each other in real life, have been racing a little bit of esports as well, said, okay, this is the moment to form a team going into ZRL race season number 2. And now they've shown up, EMEA and the women's side of things, and are flying. And it looks like they may be taking this down yet again when it comes to the team time trial. And this season, it looks like, barring any kind of major upsets, most likely taking down this division as well.
Well, 2 of their riders, Dana Wagner and Elisa Haag, have some really incredible power numbers. If you care to delve into the numbers behind that, their 20-minute power average watts are pushing toward the 5 watts per kilo mark, which is pretty impressive, I've got to say. What I really like about these guys is that they just are very clearly team. They're always very organised, win or lose, especially with the fellas. They always show up strategically. They're very intact. They're not afraid to try different things. I think this is a team and kind of a brand that we might see really continue to flourish in the future. And I think they probably will, if they step up to Premier League, I reckon the men and the women are both in with a pretty good shot to do that. I think that we might then see some feeder teams coming through and a bit of I was going to say quite aptly, a bit of a beast being created from this development path. But they're really organised. And isn't that really the next big step in the evolution of the WTRL, that now it's not just about grabbing a few mates and giving it a go. They're actually getting really organised. They've got directors that are working with them and managing the whole process, and they're actually then feeding down into the development system and getting some of those young riders.
Yeah, looking out, the Canyon Dev definitely going to be one of those situations. I think beast mode also, with how many teams they have across all of the regions. You have teams doing this feeder situation, looking for. Isn't it amazing that in the background, people wouldn't know this, but in the background, this has been developing for a solid 5 years. Very, very, seeds just tilling the ground 5 years ago. But now at this point, we're beyond germination. We've got something here. I'm getting into gardening now, and you're starting.
Yeah,
but I mean,
I was going to point that out.
we're getting into a little bit of gardening, but at this point, you're starting to think about that next gen. You're starting to think about that next season. Like you've really plucked a lot of fruit at this point. Now it's time. Okay, how are we going to replant this whole thing? And it's pretty cool to see how teams are doing that, because the competition's getting that intense and there's that much on the line that they're looking for the best results they possibly can, which then only helps the athletes that are coming up and through this whole Zwift Racing esports program. So we're going to move our way back here, though, real quickly to it looks like Turbo is with Leah Thorvaldsen. Now, do you know about hobnobs, Kate? I'm just wondering if you know anything about hobnobs.
I have no idea what a hobnob is.
Oh,
Zero
no.
idea.
Okay, you got to follow.
Let me guess. Is it a food?
It is a cookie. It is a cookie.
Cookie.
And
At least I got
Leah Thorvaldsen has done cookie showdown competitions on her Instagram live as a challenge within the Zwift community with the women's teams, and they sent her cookies to try. And recently she did another challenge too of some other candy. And it's all about, post race, what do I get to eat? Kind of like we're splurging kind of. It's absolutely great. Leah is
she
the
sounds
first
like my kind of girl.
She won the first Zwift Academy winner of all, the first ever Zwift Academy winner, Leah Thorvaldsen, now leading the Turbo team on the women's side of things. Absolutely off the sea. They're good here. Gertle's here as well. Colleen is the recent pickup, the Italian. She's been the climber. She was able to challenge a few weeks back up against some of the top talent in this league as well. Over the top of the Innsbruck climb, she was absolutely killing it. So great to see Turbo also with some development with the young Colleen that's come in from Italy here. They're about to finish up their race. It looks like having a good race, but CCY raced like a girl. Another top team chasing them down pretty quickly, only a little ways back. So it's been a hot race out here today.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where they wash out in their overall times, because when we've looked at, for the most part, aside from the team I think that we jinxed without meaning to, they've been pretty neat. There's been a pretty good technical show amongst the teams. They've all ridden pretty well together, finished with the minimum of 4. Some of them are still with the 6 without too many dramas. So let's just see if the speed, ends up matching the efficiency. It was something we saw with the Canyon Dev team, that they looked slightly messier, but I think it's because they were pushing the pace and then they would come back together. So that was a good one. This is a nice looking kit. from Sisu crossing the line while also making an overtake. It looked like they had one or two riders mixed up there. BRT coming into the finish now, pushing all the way to the line, which is good to see. A
Looks
lone
like
rider
Gemma
here,
got dropped off. Yeah, Gemma Felstead. Good to see her finishing up really hammering, regardless of being. She's getting her workout in. Like, whatever, I got dropped here at Madsen as well. It looks like they really did either they employed the reality of burning riders early and then just letting them go because they only finished with 4, because they showed up with 6 here at Madsen here as well from Turbo. So they did show up with 6. So either the climb just absolutely imploded the team, or they sacrificed a little bit and then let some riders go. But it looks like Gemma is just hammering to the line to get her workout in. Good on her.
Yep. I mean, if you get dropped and you just sit up and go home, your chances of getting dropped next time are pretty high as well. So if that is what happened, if they used her up and the climb bit those legs a bit, I'm glad to see Felstead riding all the way to the line, because that is really the only way you're going to improve your chances. Look at this on the right. We've got Bevel Aqua, Kusig Bike. Don't like this gap that's opening up behind, though. Need to keep an eye on that, because it's those gaps at this point that can be quite dangerous. This first 5K is actually a little bit lumpy up and down. It's not until about the 8.5K mark that they do hit that KOM in earnest. But they've kind of got to look after each other just a little bit better in these opening stages. Otherwise, when those small gaps open up, they very quickly balloon to quite big gaps. And that's where we're seeing the riders not then be able to jump back on over the top.
Yeah, and this is going to be, we're in with the West 1, Division 1A is what we're jumping in with here. We'll get some current standings for this division up in just a moment, but we are going to move our way forward here to get an idea of where the first starters were. I have a feeling this is going to be Foudre, if I'm not incorrect, making their way around one of the top teams in the West. Going to keep on moving our way forward, though, to see what we can find at the front end for the first stars. This is going to be Bike Strong KTM. We're the first to get out on course here, mainly all in orange. The one pink and white kit, though, letting itself be known in and amongst the I want to call it puke orange now because of Anna, but it's not like at all. Orange doesn't bother me nearly as much as it does for Anna here. One of the newer riders, though, here is that going to be Davies? No. Here, I'm going to see if I can figure out which. It's going to be Blaine, Jay Blaine. Again, another situation. I love to call these out. Welcome to the world of Zwift. A huge assumption here, but who's going to pick the level 1 bike, right? If now the thing, though, he is in the orange kit, though. So he did change that up here, at least. So at least there was a little bit of coordination, which tells me he knew what he was doing. And so, so that bike was not picked accidentally.
Look, bearing in mind this is my first week in this league, so a lot of these riders are a little bit new to me. So this could be completely way off. So let's just kind of put that caveat out there. But if there is a rider in a team who is a seriously strong climber, for example, and perhaps is still learning the art of pacing and tempo up a climb in relation to some teammates, controversial, but it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to put them on a heavier, more basic bike as a bit of a drag down to help them with that pacing somewhat by being a bit of a disadvantage. I know that sounds a little bit crackers, because who's looking to do that? But given how difficult it can be to pace in the virtual world, given the slight time lag, so that if you do sit up, that doesn't happen immediately, and that can be a little bit difficult. It could almost be like, do you remember those old stories? I'm sure you've heard them, Nathan, from the generations before, where they used to train with rocks in their back pocket and then go up climbs. And so then you take the rocks out and all of a sudden you feel amazing.
Did you just say the old generations? The old?
Yeah.
So I mean, I used to put right? I used to put like 10-pound weights on. Wait, I feel like you're telling me I'm old, like, because I put weights on and go climb hill climbs for my mountain biking. Like, wait a second. Like, I don't have too many gray hairs in my head. Like the really old, way back. Like,
Oh, look, you know what? It's far less offensive coming from a woman to the other way round. So don't feel like you're going to get me back and start calling me old. It's not going to go down quite with the same sense of humor.
it's, Kate,
All right, so maybe
Kate,
our
Kate shows up to
generation
one
then.
EMEA, shows up to one EMEA, and then got called old, and she's out of here.
Never to be seen again. Oh, well, it was nice meeting everybody. Nice to see you all on this one occasion. No, but okay, so you understand me then, the old rocks in the pocket technique, kind of to just change up the feel. I don't know that that's what's going on here, but that could be possible because that's not altogether a silly idea, to be honest.
Pocket Rocks. That guy, we're going to call him Pocket Rocks from now on. This is
Pocket rocks. Ah, see, I like
there we
that. What a
go. There
great
we go.
nickname.
Jade, all of the bikes. So that's what Laverick was doing earlier too. He was too light of a rider, too great of a hill climber. He jumped on the S Works and Venge, and then was like, "All right, here we go. We're gonna throw on some heavy wheels, and on the downhill, I'll be able to keep up and keep that CDA nice and low, cut right through the wind, and we'll just call him." Pocket Rocks. Here we go. Pocket Rocks
Yeah,
Blaine
well,
making his way to the top. 190 beats per minute.
and I want to make sure we differentiate here because pocket rocks is quite different to junk in the trunk. They're two quite different strategies. I'm really not going to get invited back to the EMEA at this rate, am I? Need to be careful. But he is climbing pretty well considering he's on the basic bike. And we've got also a Tron bike in there as well at the front and the back. So big shout out to Blaine, who we now call Pocket Rocks.
Pocket Rocks.
So,
Pocket Rocks. Very
welcome.
different than
I
junk.
like that.
What is the junk? The junk in the trunk strategy is very interesting. Are you scrolling
No, I mean,
Instagram
that's
too
just
much? I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably time to move on now. Nobody can see my blushing face, but all the same, let's move right along.
Bravo! R&R MCA here. Navy Cycling. Hammering away now, as you can see. Loving this team at 4 riders. Again, we've got we've got to come up with a name with this fashion style. Dog's breakfast is what you've been saying when it comes to the disorganization of a team all over the place with where they're at. But on the fashion side of things, what is the opposite of GQ? What is the opposite of runway? Like, there's got to be some sort of help us out, chat. Help us out, chat. We've got the pockets, Pocket Rocks strategy. We've got, Dog's breakfast, chat. What is the situation here? They've gone to plaid, maybe, but when it
I
comes
don't know. I mean, Jonathan Vorder's made Argyle cool again, so maybe we can make plaid cool again.
There's a little bit of a Spaceballs joke going around, actually, when it comes to that situation with Christina Grossman, one of the top riders from Sarsa Pro's Closet, actually, as she believed that she saw Zwift going to plaid while sprinting the other day, actually. And then there were GIFs going all over the place of Spaceballs 1 flying away at ludicrous speed. So that was a fun little meme as well in the community. Always great to see them all coming through here. A little bit of disorganization back to the racing though here as Solstice we've got here. Navy Cycling 2 seconds back. This is not going to help them one bit. Crucial. We saw earlier Cam with Canyon, Dev playing it perfect, just allowing the rider to get back on. This is exactly the opposite. The rider was not allowed to just barely get back on. Look at how much time they have to lose now at this point, because that 4th rider is gone. If they would have gone 1 second slower over the top, it would already be on. They would be doing 60, 70 kilometers per hour. Now they're doing 52. What a difference here, Kate.
Yeah, there really is no benefit in being a hero in this kind of situation because it's inefficient to let that gap open up too much. You really are, you need to monitor where your 4th rider is going. Not all of the teams will have a independent director. Some of these teams will actually have one of the riders that are playing director. I think that can sometimes, look, that's not ideal if you don't have to do that. If you are able to have an external rider calling the shots, that's great. Because sometimes I think things aren't said quite quick enough if you've got one of the riders doing that, as well as, focusing on getting over these pretty tough climbs. I mean, the interesting thing to note, and this is fairly consistent in this scenario, Nathan, is Morris, his heart rate's only 160. I say only because that usually indicates he's got a bit more in the tank, but because of the downhill, because of the speed, that gap has already opened up. He's having to just push back. Normally, some of the other riders, and here's where the big difference is, those riders that he's chasing back to are now freewheeling and waiting for him. They're getting recovery, and as soon as he gets back on, they'll be feeling pretty fresh. Morris, in the meantime, has had to chase hard that whole time and is now at a bit of a disadvantage. But again, we saw this last night. Again, a bit of a mistake from these guys, because Morris shouldn't be able to just fly past. They needed to anticipate him catching. Isn't it a fine line? On one hand, we're saying they need to hold up a little bit more, and on another, we're saying please don't hesitate, because that causes inefficiency as well. But these little nuances, they really add up in terms of seconds.
That was probably a second or two. That was a second or two right there, by having him on the front, slowing down the front riders, now having to bump by. Solti's now having to put out an extra watts per kilogram just to get by him. So there is that reality. If they would have sped up just a little more of the moment, and a lot of times when you do have, so just as a tip there for everybody out there, if you do have a rider drop off the back and you do have one rider that is strong enough and can communicate in Discord, if I go back for a rider, I'm like, all right, I start kind of coaching him through it a little bit as best as I can, get to my wheel, and I even tell them, back off now. Just to my wheel. Just to my wheel. Please, just because if they don't do that, a lot of times they put in such a huge effort, they don't recognize the depth perception, and boom, right past to the front, too much speed. Then they slow down. Then everybody slows down. Then it's mayhem again, and you end up with a little bit of disorganization. Frustration. The more disorganization, the more anxiety, the more thoughts are everywhere. Where am I supposed to be? So if you do just latch onto the back there, it doesn't really disrupt anything. No, everybody kind of knows where to be. No one has to push through by you. You don't have to accelerate again when you back off. It's so much easier at that point. So it's a great point, Kate, actually, when it comes to keeping things organized.
Doesn't that description, all I was hearing there is this tone of anxiety a bit between what plays out there, because ain't that the truth? It is such an anxiety-inducing kind of event. You don't want to let your teammates down. You want to perform for them. You don't want to stuff up technically and get it wrong. And until they are completely drilled, and that could take literally dozens and dozens of team time trials before they feel like they're really good as a group together. You throw in a new rider and that all changes again, of course. But at the beginning, a lot of words have to get spoken. A lot of directions need to be taken. As you said, it's like, go.
Like
no,
we're going to have a word. I felt like you're saying, like, we're going to have a word. Yeah. Like, kind of
no. No, but it's, I think when you've kind of nailed it, when you don't have to say too much, because there's a bit of autopilot that goes on, versus the absolute flurry of discussion that has to happen when you're starting out. So a quiet chat, I think, is a good chat because it suggests a little bit of cohesion amongst the group. Good to see this crew still with 6 over the top of that climb, and then also down that descent. That to me indicates this Italian team that they've got a pretty good organisation going. Their heart rates are fairly high. I also like to see that if you have such high heart rates a couple of K after the climb, it means that they haven't taken too much of a chance to back off the pace and to keep that speed high. And I think they're being rewarded, because it looks like they're only about 5 seconds behind the Dads Inside riding trainers, the Dirt Wolf pack there. They need to make a clean overtake.
So Team Italy, first of our top 10, and if you can look at the standings here, Plastic Cockneys, Team Tour 2K, Callis Cockneys here. I mean, absolutely walking away with this one. Team Tour 2000 Callis, they in the EMEA in race 1 in season 1 showed up with a bang, and then kind of petered out a little bit at the back end of the season. It looks like, though, at this point they're still trying to challenge. We've got let's see here, 3 races left here at this point. So after this, they still, if they have a good day today, there's still a chance to challenge. But Cockneys having a perfect score. It seems like they're fairly unstoppable. It looks like they're going to be heading into that knockout rounds here in round 9 and 10, but it's not said and done just as of yet. But Team Italy here with 46 points, they're battling to try and take out SZ Balder and Team KWCC with this ride, or at least grab some solid points. And they are almost making the catch on dirt here, so they are having a good day. If we look behind them, though, it looks like Team SZ are hot on their heels. So there's a lot of catches being made. SZ have made up some good time. This is going to be SZ. Is this Balder? It's going to be SZ Balder. Yep, that's what it is here. Sometimes they do keep their team names in from other races. La Tormenta is a well-known team in the WTRL TTT on Thursdays, actually. So it does look like this is going to be a team of some of the best SZ riders, I would assume, coming from those TTTs on Thursday as well.
Well, aside from the fashion point where we talk about them all wearing coordinated jerseys, save for our national champion, who should wear his national champion jersey for sure. One of the reasons that I think it's really important is the scenario we're about to see with the overtake. You need to make sure it's as clean as possible and everybody can get through without getting caught behind any riders. If there is any confusion as to the jerseys that your teammates are wearing or which team they may ride for, you can end up on the wheel of somebody who you mistake to be one of your teammates. You've got to bear in mind, I think, for anybody watching and thinking about, why are we commenting on their jerseys, that at this point, their heart rate, look at that, 186. They are not thinking super clearly, and the more autopilot they can do, the better. They've actually done a really great job of blowing straight through the team there with the overtake. Yeah, that was really neat. There's a lot of etiquette around this, isn't there? I mean, it's in my understanding, Nathan, it's the onus of the overtaking team to make sure they accelerate and get past. Would that be a fair representation?
I would say that. Also, though, it is a little bit on the other team to slow down just enough, though. I mean, not slow down necessarily, but at least not like try and hold on to the wheels. But if you do overtake and then you slow down, that would be, what are you doing? That's kind of, so you need to keep the original speed. One thing I do want to say to SZ, and we've been noticing this the last 3 weeks or so, we've noticed every single time that their organization, when it comes to keeping everybody exactly where they need to be, has been extremely impressive. I haven't seen a better organized team than some of the top riders in the SZ. It was actually a highlight that I think we clipped a few weeks back of how incredibly organized they were in the WTRL TTT on Thursdays, keeping their perfect formation. This does shoot to the reality of Martin Jortvik, one of the longest standing team managers and race organizers and group ride organizers of all time on Zwift, a beta user. He's been around for 5+ years, and Martin really put Sweden on the map when it comes to organizing for that country in general. He is just one of the legends, I would definitely say, of Zwift racing. And it goes to show through how organized this team can be as well. He's not the only one. There's a lot of names actually that then came up around Martin's leadership too, amongst the top levels too. So just a big shout out to Team Sweden, Team SZ being one of the largest teams, most organized, and just saying that how organized this TTT is kind of like speaks to that of how long they've been around. So it's really great to see them at this top level here, currently holding down 9th in this West Division 1.
I do like the experience that flows through and keeps continuing every season and builds. And I do love their kit. It's actually very similar. I mean, it's very distinctively Swedish. And I feel like they punch a bit above their weight in the Zwift world, actually, in terms of how visible they are in the racing scene as well as simply on rides. No matter what time of day I seem to log in, I feel like there's always a number of Swedish riders out on course. Am I the only person that does that checks out all the flags of all of the riders around? I think it's actually really interesting to see where everybody comes from when they're out on course. We go over to the land of baguettes and champagne here with the French team. They're looking pretty neat as well. 6 of them, 20 kilometres of racing, 400-metre lead-in, so 20.4 in total. That's about 12 and a half miles, if my maths is correct. We don't use miles here in Australia, but I know the Brits and, of course, the Americans do. So 12 and a half miles. So they've only got a couple of mile left to go. They're not traveling too badly, nearly 60k an hour. Well, it is a bit of a downhill section. The heart rates, maybe they could push it a tiny bit more as they come into this finish. I think success in a team time trial, regardless of where your team finishes on the board, Nathan, is if everybody finishes with their tank completely empty. So there is an art to it. But I think that's definitely got to be one of the outcomes you're looking for.
I am seeing, yeah, 100% agree with that as far as the needing to completely empty the tank. I mean, and that you feel if you leave anything not, that wasn't left out there, you didn't, there's something left on the table there. Ugh, man, that can be really frustrating after you're all said and done. Interesting to see here, Foods right not in the top 10 from what I can see in the standings right now. But this is the most definitely Fudre. VSOP right now hammering away. So maybe they're either having a really good ride or they've been caught by a lot of riders out there. SDW here, Vesbede. Now all in the Bumblebee kits, it looks like. 4 riders left for them. 53 seconds back. So it looks like losing a little bit of time to Fudre. And then we're going to keep on moving our way backwards here to try and get an idea of where everybody's at. And this is going to be the BRT team. I'm assuming this is going to be the Hurricanes now chasing them down. Team Experimental, though. Now, you want to speak about a team that's been around for a long time. Podsy here. Very, very long time. Zwifter, Joachim Puzmer. This is he was at the first in real life esports event for sure. Zach Herod recently writing, I believe for Cycling Tip, if I wasn't incorrect there, about why the TTT has really put the esports world on the map. Great article put out by Zach Herod, and one of the top esports athletes out there. I actually went up against Zach. Well, you were commentating recently on Zach and Trekkie and I going neck and neck, head to head in the
yes,
two of us.
Yes, that was a very good race. Actually, I hadn't seen a lot of Zach before that, but that impressed me. And now I seem to see his name everywhere. It's one of those things like you don't see a red car and then all you see is red cars.
Yeah, Herod newer to the scene than the rest of the team around him, for sure, but definitely has jumped on in the last year and made a name for himself. Team Experimental, one of the first in-game kits here. 4 riders left, it looks like, and 64 points. They are battling out with the DZR Dynamic Danes here. It looks like 1 point difference. BRT Hurricane there, 61. But Team Tour 2000 Callus at 76 and Plastic Cognies, they've really distanced themselves. So it really is just a battle for third. The question will be, what is going to be the situation in the final rounds to see if they will be able to try and grab a spot in the playoffs for Team Experimental. Definitely a team that I would love to see there. Just not sure if they quite got what some of the newer blood has. There's a whole new generation of esports cycles that have come in and maybe put them not quite at that Premier Division level.
Yeah, they need to make sure they continue to evolve because there's a certain savvy that comes with being the first mover, but they also, as it is evolving very quickly around them, need to make sure they're on that because obviously that experience can kind of be their secret weapon in the end. It is really open from 3rd, 4th, 5th down to 6th. Only 4 points in it. Plastic Cockneys, a perfect score, a perfect ride so far is pretty impressive. I hope that they do get the chance to challenge themselves though, because if they are just getting a little bit complacent, that actually won't help them in their quest to step up to Premier League because they need to keep pushing hard the whole time. This name's a bit of a giggle. The Fat Stags.
Well, they're employing your junk in the trunk is what they're doing.
Yes,
that's what
they are.
That's the tactic
I applaud
here.
that. Oh, I love that. There's a real community element of Zwift where people, drop any pretense and just aren't self-conscious at all and just get out there. And I love that. I think it gives access to a lot more people. A couple of teams going over the line together there and overtake. We've seen a lot of overtakes happen today. We'll have to see where it all comes out in the wash in the overall results from today. But from where we sit in these pictures we're seeing, Nathan, I think there's been a few unexpected results with so many overtakes.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out in the results. Again, this is an update. We've said it a couple times during the broadcast. We are struggling a lot with the Zwift Power Live data, but we will get the results up on screen as quickly as possible. WTRL skyrockets now making their way to the line. You are 100% correct there, Kate. I believe that there are going to be some upsets here between these riders. DZR, it looks like almost about to be caught by the Plastic Cockneys. It looks like 15 seconds back. Is that right? Or 6 seconds back, actually. They're within sights. This is the top team, so this is going to be the finishers here for the A division for the West 1. This was the first seed. They almost caught the DZR Dynamic Danes just ahead of them. Well, interesting to see here. Maybe the Dynamic Danes fell backwards a little bit. I'm not positive on that. Tortu Callus were definitely caught by the Plastic Cockneys. So you do see the seeding order. Plastic Cockneys, Team Tor, two Callus here were the second seed. So that does say they were caught and passed, and they almost caught the Dynamic Danes. That tells me the Cockneys had a crazy fast time out there today, as the second place currently in the standings is just coming across.
Yeah, Kalash looking a little bit messy. They're only finishing with fourth there. They, as you say, they were passed by the Cockneys, but it does seem like the Cockneys just had a really good ride because the Dynamic Danes started about 2 minutes in front of them. So to get almost caught, is quite remarkable. But Kalash not too far, not too much closer to catching them. So that indicates to us, I think, that the Cockneys were just absolute leaders in the pack. Again, we'll be able to see that when the results come out. I really like the Danish Swifters kit. Again, very distinctive, just like the Swedish kit. You know exactly what country they come from. In Australia, the equivalent is the Aero. They've got the green and gold going on there, so you can really tell instantly looking at them where they're from. I'd love to see Beast Mode get a more German-looking kit for them, because that orange is a little bit Dutch. And the more I think that this racing's happening, I feel like there's a bit of a patriotic country-based element coming out as well, where a lot of people, even though they're in their own pain caves, even though you could literally race with anybody around the globe, it does feel like people are getting quite organised by their countries. So that's quite cool to watch as well.
Beast Mode is a great example of that. Plastic Cockneys as well, very much a UK team. We're looking at a team right here with Saxon Watts as well on the men's side of things. Saxon Watts were mainly women's, but they've done a lot of recruiting recently, and mainly coming out of the UK, as it is a UK-based company. So great to see, as you were saying, these. And I think as you get these more in real life clubs starting to do this recruitment, people going, okay, the Zwift racing thing is a real deal thing. And I think you're going to start seeing that a little bit more. Whereas before we had these conglomerate teams, we had these teams that were stitched together a little bit more from all over the world. You noticed somebody on Zwift. And what's interesting is some of the strongest teams are those teams because of the pool of riders they had to select from. It was like, well, who are you going to select from? You're going to go and find whoever's winning all the races internationally. It doesn't matter where they're from. You can meet up with them anytime on Zwift. So those are some of the strongest teams. But I think also that expression, though, coming through from the local regions is very motivating, and knowing who those riders are, being able to talk to them in real life, and then being able to show up and train and race together on Zwift really can translate to your in real life stuff as well, which is really cool. And having that expression in game, as you were saying, Kate.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of in real life meetups for people who ride together and race together on Zwift, but have never actually met each other. And you get a little bit like that. I've made the comment a few times, they're really lovely people, but I'm not actually sure if that's their real name or their last name. It's almost a bit of an identity that you come to in the Zwift world. And I love when I see pictures of people having meetups. I think that that's a really cool in real life way to catch up. I mean, we always talk about having a bit of a Zwift Community Live retreat. Where are we going? Costa Rica, I think we've planned at some point to sit by the pool with some margaritas. So maybe that can become, like a big event. Everybody's welcome.
Who's paying? You've got that covered,
I
right?
don't know.
You've got
I
that
don't know.
covered.
I
Is
haven't.
that
I haven't thought about that part yet. One thing at a time.
Costa Rica? I'm on it. I'm
I've
on
never
it. The
been there.
ZCL. But Kate just put a pin on the map. I've never been there. That's where we're going. Stark's now to the line. And this is going to be the C's, everybody. We are hanging out, watching avatars in teams, seeing how organized they are today, but simply with the data struggles, everybody. We are having some fun with it. It's what it's really all about here, coming together as a community as well. We'll get the results up as quickly as we possibly can. This is the current standings for what we're looking at for the C currently. We're going to keep on moving our way back here through the West and see what we can find. But it is going to be, looks like a mainly German team. We're talking about this and it seems to be playing out right in front of us with these localities and regions showing up and having an expression in game, because we're seeing a lot of common flags in this C category.
I mean, there's got to be a language consideration there as well. We saw a number of Japanese teams in the APAC League get quite creative trying to communicate because they all spoke different. There was a bit of miscommunication going on because they're vastly different languages, which I find quite interesting. But again, look at this. This is 5 different jerseys. This really must be a strategy because otherwise it just doesn't make any sense to me that they would all turn up in different kits. And I think that would make it quite difficult when they do an overtake. Because look, this is at the finish where everybody just stops pedaling and all their avatars group up. But if you're not in matching jerseys, you have no idea who's on your team and who's not. And that's a kind of a very big and clear example of what happens when you're doing an overtake and you're all in different jerseys. It can be quite hard to actually make sure you're following the right wheel through. Let's take a look at the overall chart here for EMEA.
We need to
The
change
Dick
this up.
ones is that what we're watching. Oh no, we've got the D's on screen actually. We're watching the Hurricanes head out. So they've already been through the most difficult part of the course, which is at about the 10K mark. So there it is. There's the standings.
Yeah, sorry about that. We needed an update on the standings there. This is West 1, Division 1D right now that we're looking at. So apologies on the standings that were up there, everybody. But GFC Hurricanes here hammering away. They've got a few in here, it looks like, Kate. Wolverines, Hurricanes. Now I'm wondering if perhaps, this is going to be one of the first seeds starting. This is the D category. They get started just a little bit later and have a little bit longer of a ride here. 2.5 or less watts per kilogram, usually 4D categories. This can be a tough climb to get up over the top at 2.5 steadies. Definitely with that 10 to 15% gradient there. I think this is probably one that they're looking at like, oh my god, really? TTT course here? This is the category that's going to like roll their eyes the most, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot more to lose, I think, than there is to gain in terms of keeping it steady. If everybody rides fairly well together, maybe, and not push it, you might not gain as much time and be quite as quick over that climb. But if you flip that around and you push that little bit too hard and blow it all to pieces, we've seen through all of the divisions that it's very hard to come back from that. Really hard to recover. From this view, it looks like Zwift Scotland are down to only 2 riders, so that is rather bad news, although they have their other 2 chasers just 2 seconds back based on our data on the right. 2 seconds can feel like a lifetime in Zwift, can't it? Once it actually registers a single second, you're outside of that delightful draft where it gives you the warning and tells you to make sure you hold the wheel. So they need to not push too hard up here and make sure that they can regroup with the 4 of them. As we've said, it's the timing is taken off that 4 across the line. So this is not looking particularly good for these guys.
No, it's not. This is a pretty big mess here for them at this point. They need to get it back together. A lot of times it is the lower categories as well, a little bit more disorganization. maybe not raced it quite as much. There can be a bit bigger discrepancies between abilities as well. I do want to point out in this category how close the racing is, though. This is, I mean, look at the top four here in the EMEA West Division 1D. Pretty awesome to see. And that's something that is really brought out in Zwift racing that you might not always see, at least for me. Okay, so for me in mountain bike racing, the category 4 and 5 maybe didn't have like a lot of consistent, really high competition, or at least really, really intense competition. In Zwift racing, you see this a lot in this European, especially categories here, with the C and the Ds have these long-standing battles going on here. And TFC, Team Netherlands that we're looking at here, very well organized with their kit, representing very well with Team KNWU, which is an organization out of the Netherlands. Actually, they've got the orange and the black here going on as well with the bikes. I mean, I give this a solid 9 out of 10. A couple of the bikes, a little bit off here and there. Maybe not the same socks across the board. One's got white, not orange on the back here. Tall, kind of short here, but overall, pretty solid representing the Netherlands. But again, back to the closeness here. Wolverines and Team Netherlands with Scotland, only 2 points difference. And then 2 guys there as well. Very close racing.
They do. They've all got a good touch of orange, which is, of course, the national colour for the Netherlands. So they've got that going on. It is tougher with 4, but it actually, in some ways, teaches you the art of team time trialing that little bit more than if you have the safety net of 6 and you can afford to make a few mistakes. I loved how all the avatars just dropped in to formation perfectly, in perfect unison there. There's some delightful quirks in game.
That was awesome.
Be quite entertaining.
I don't know if I've ever seen that. I don't think I've ever seen that before, actually. They all were like, they're talking about us now, and now we will do this. Look, they all did it again.
Yeah.
With synchronized swimming. We're watching.
Or a Mexican wave or something. Is it? Do you call it a Mexican wave? Hold on. I'm wondering if you guys call it a Mexican wave.
No, we just do the wave. We do the wave.
You know, where it goes around the stadium?
Yeah, we just call it the wave.
Yeah. Oh, we call that a Mexican wave.
Why is it Mexican?
I have no idea. I don't even know where to start with answering that. I have no idea. But now, again, I feel like I'm writing today a list of things I have to Google. And top of the list, now that we know it's a pod of dolphins, now that we've had that sorted out, top of the list is now hobnobs. So I might give those a crack. And in an ode to Leah, I'll give those
you need the message. Send Leah a message. She'll love it. She'll love it. You guys, you should do an Instagram side by side. We need an Instagram live. You both do the challenge next to each other, and we'll just do it here on broadcast. I actually told Leah we need this content, perfect. And you guys can eat the cookies, and then you both rate them. New competition, cookie competition. Post race though, so it's after she's done racing. We got to get it going.
That
send
gives
us some
me
messages.
A natural advantage. I like that. Hold on, just to clarify, are there choc chips in a hobnob?
I don't think so, but I haven't tried one yet. See, I'm in trouble now. I'm on the spot.
Yeah, because between us, you're the expert. So if you don't know that, then I definitely have a little bit of work to do on that.
Oh, I think Kate likes the homework. I think Kate likes I have to go eat cookies for work now. I'm gonna go. Make sure to tell your kiddos. No, you can't eat these. These are for work. These are for work. I actually say that often. You can't eat my bars in the office. Those are for work. Okay, I need to be able to ride my bike.
Well, look, I must say, after setting up a home studio, my 6-year-old takes selfies now and says, "Oh, the lighting's not very good, Mum." So I think I'm creating a monster here with my home studio setup. Look, we've got a bit of an overtake happening here. The team NL and their delightfully coordinated bike movements are delightfully coordinating here. Oh my goodness me, we
have a split
time.
How did this happen?
Look at this. This is fantastic. Ooh,
right at the end of the broadcast. At the end of the broadcast.
Yeah, that'd be right, wouldn't it? But
thank you.
Team NL on the exact same time at that 16-second mark as the delimited diesels. So even from the very top down the list, we've got some pretty
Wow.
tight competitions going on, which is pretty cool. Draft Beers, love that name. They moved quick.
Yeah, I'm
That is a
wondering
really
if these
quick
are
time.
correct. I'm gonna see if these are
Yeah.
actually correct here. So I don't think those are like beyond Premier Division times. So I have a feeling we
Yeah,
have
certainly the
splits.
851
We
is a
have
lot faster
splits,
than
but I have a
the
feeling these
Velocis.
are. I think something's going on here. I'm gonna just say thank you for the splits. We at least have data coming through, but it didn't exactly come through and tell us anything that was necessarily useful at this point. But Team LNLD, I think those splits were correct at the tie there between them and CLS with delimited diesels. So it does look like Team Netherlands is going to be coming to the line. Zwift Scotland did get caught with them just now. So that is going to be a better time for the Netherlands. Two guys now making their way to the line as well in the back end of the D category for the European West out on course.
I'm just going to jump over to some um, chatter on the live stream here. We've just been told they're saving us from googling here. That it's called a Mexican wave because it happened at a football World Cup where the Mexican fans started the wave and it went all around the stadium. So there you
Oh,
go, the Mexican wave,
it
as
was
we
the
know.
first
And
ones to make it happen. They were the first ones to do it. They get to
exactly,
claim it. Thank you
they
very
did a good
much to
job
my
of it.
heritage. My well, that's my heritage. That's where it's coming. So Guerra, let's go. I believe it's absolutely loving it. We can own that. I
Yeah,
now
I love
say that I own the wave now at this point.
the Gera wave, maybe. And the other thing that's been pointed out is that there's chocolate on one side of the hobnobs. So that's good. If there's no choc chips, at least there's some chocolate there. And I'm thinking we could have a bit of fun dunking. At this point, I'm imagining like an Anzac cookie with some chocolate, but I'm not sure too many people will know what an Anzac cookie
Well,
is on
yeah,
this
that's what I was like.
broadcast.
What is an Anzac cookie? What is happening with those?
It's oats essentially, and butter and sugar and yumminess.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, I think we're gonna have a mom drop out for just a moment here, and maybe we can get some cookies here for just a moment. But Molten here with friends as well as Kea Fonzo now making their way to the line. It looks like we've got the final riders here coming on through for the D category. We really appreciate all the chatter coming on through. Black British Cyclist, Kendizel, and it's going to be Team Douglas as well. Really appreciate everybody in chat helping us out. Dustin D and Euro Cycling Trips. Great to see everybody hanging out in chat. This is the D's finishing up, everybody, for the European West. It was a little bit of a struggle of a broadcast with the data situations out here today, but we're making sure we finish it up well. We'll be bringing in results here in just a moment. Before we do that, I just do want to make a couple of announcements here quickly. As we do have the Zwift Duathlon League launching. If you did not know, it's going to be coming on February 17th. Zwift Duathlon League is a 6-week bike and run race series. So you do need to have a trainer next to a treadmill in order to make it happen. Or you could, if you can stay connected to Zwift, you could go run outside with a phone next to you as well. Zwifters will ride as far as they can for 35 minutes and run as fast as they can for 15. There will be a 10-minute transition break after the bike to get yourself ready to run. Bikes races are mass start, non-drafting affair, so choose your favorite TT bike. So no drafting, TT bikes, transition times 10 minutes. The run is a standard running race. Pretty cool to see. I do know that Anna, she had a pretty cool setup being posted. Kate, very cool to see that Zwift is employing this together here. And, duathlons, it sounds like a whole nother level of type 2 fun.
Yeah, kind of the more the merrier. I think the more multi-sport athletes we can get into the Zwift competition, the better. I laugh at the 10-minute transition time because I think that I'm imagining myself trying to get between bike shoes and running shoes. And I imagine that I may need that 10 minutes in order to not break a leg in the middle of that transition. But Anna Russell certainly has a pretty svelte setup. She's got the treadmill next to the bike, 2 screens going. And I think, a lot of fun can be had with a duathlon.
Real quickly, another reminder, quick, while we wait for the results, we do have upcoming, just announced recently, it is going to be playoffs happening in week 9 and 10. So 2 extra weeks. It's going to be a points race and not week 9 and 10, excuse me. It'll be rounds 9 and 10. It will be all on Saturday, Friday, and Saturday. Playoffs in the men's, it's going to be max of 14 teams coming from each one of the divisions across the world trying to get into the Premier Division. Championship playoff days are Saturday and Sunday morning in APAC for that. And then on the women's side of things, it will be a maximum of 8 women's teams. The top 3 teams out of that playoff will advance, and that's across all of the regions. Really great to see. I am being told that results should be perfect. It looks like, provisional, not perfect, coming in from Mr. Martin over at WTRL, who puts in a massive effort all throughout the day, every single Tuesday as he organizes everything. Let's see if we can bring in some results here. On the men's side of things, we're just going to go ahead and start right off the bat with the we're gonna have to bring in the women's here as it is going to be Project Beast Mode at the top at 4.4 watts per kilogram here, Kate. Solid effort, and that was your pick, I think, early on there, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, they just look so smooth. And we know from the men's team that they're a really organised unit, and they looked just fantastic out on course. So I'm not surprised to see them at the top there, and a pretty solid 22-second gap as well, because the socks for Watts, what the F, I nearly slipped up saying that. Yeah. I need to be careful with that one. I think that's by design. They also looked really smooth out on course. And I was particularly impressed over the top of the climb with their form. So they did well. They're turbo women coming in third. Of course, they're the very experienced crew, and they're not too far behind. Aeonian RT in fourth. The BRT Atomic Kittens coming in fifth. The Bristol Flyers, they came in sixth. Cryogen Stelvio in seventh, and all pretty tight times here, only a couple of seconds between fifth and seventh there. Socks for Watts, Polka Dot Bombs came in eighth, and they weren't too far back either. Sisu, I Race Like a Girl in ninth, and Draft ZRL rounding out the top 10 there.
And in the EMEA West 1 Division 1B, Socks for Watts SBR Cake coming in for 32.04 at first place. Sisu, I Race Like a Girl, Kalini there in second, 18 seconds back. SWW Bollinger coming on in for third. And then it's going to be Belgian Zwift Riders very close on the heels, 4 seconds back. Cats 1. RCC Women B in fifth. Cryogen Kreuter in sixth. WTRL Watts up in seventh. BVRT in eighth. Revo Snickers in ninth. And then it's going to be R3R Bewitched. Now, we just had, it looks like, a dropout for the results for just a moment here. Let's see if they come back on through. I think there was an update just a second ago, and there we go. Oh, thank you. That was a close one. In the C's there, Kate.
We've got the Z Sunrays taking the win. Only less than 10 seconds ahead of TFC Storm in second, so that's a really solid ride by both teams. The Aeonian Chicas in third, Bella Velo in fourth, Revo Galaxies in fifth. All of those top 5 teams within a minute. That is tight racing. The herd of Cougar Chaos, it does sound chaotic indeed, in sixth. KRT Hotter Than Hell. They must be talking about the middle of Australia in summer there. They are in seventh. Fearsome in eighth. Vikings Freya in ninth. And the Clapham Chazelles in 10th.
What is a Chazelle? I have no idea.
Chassel?
Chassel?
As soon as I said that, I thought, I'm not sure if
I don't know. I don't even know what it is. I'm not sure. Like, I just think of gazelles. Like, I think of, okay, the D category.
Add it to the Google.
Add it to the Google. We've got the Ireland Serrano hams coming in hot And they come in, for some reason I'm thinking of like a dancing pig Wilbur, at this point, and a spider in
Oh, well, there's a
corner.
meme. I want to see
So,
that meme.
coming in hot here in first place here, followed by KV Gross there in second, 40 seconds back. RCC Women D there in third. WTRL Drafting Dinos UK1 in fourth. BRT Blazing Kittens in fifth. Herda Dolphins 2 in sixth. Zwift Scott and WD1 in seventh. Cryogen Izyard in eighth. Revo Revels in ninth. And the CMA Misbehavin', one of your favorites, I know. CMA.
I love the cycling in Australia. That's an early morning for them, so good on them for getting up and giving this time zone a crack. I like that. For the most part, it is the
They're
Europeans
definitely not misbehaving
the
if they're getting up at 5 a.m. to race this.
No,
I mean, there's no late nights for the Cycling Moms Australia. They're out there.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And in fact, as mums, you heard me get a mum technical before with my small human walking in. So maybe it's actually
Send the hobnob help.
Trying to
Send the hobnob help.
Yeah,
We need the hobnob.
Exactly. All right, let's take a look over here at the Div 1 here. And Nathan, the Plastic Cockneys, well, as expected, they took the win there.
Yeah, Plastic Cockneys there, 5.5. Obviously pretty well organized with the extra 3.3 watts per kilogram from Team X. Good to see Team Experimento, though, back near the top, only with 5 riders. Zach Herod, obviously, alongside of the Podsline, Michael Podsline, the rest of the team, really showing up on the day. Team Italy with a really good ride out there today. That is surprising. They were definitely not toward the top of the leaderboard coming in. BRT Hurricane there for 4th. Team Tour 2000 Callis, they were the 2nd seed, 51 seconds back, really close with the DZR Dynamic Danes, not even a 10th of a second. We're looking at 3/100ths of a second difference there in that battle. We talked about it plenty. That time could have been lost with just a little bit of a mishap over the top, a little bit of a downhill mistake on how they were super tucking. I mean, that is really a knife's edge on time. Bike, strong KTM, one of the first starters, also with a really good ride. This is interesting to see. Look at how close this is with 54.82. Another very, very within a second close race here. But the other thing is that Bike Strong KTM were one of the first starters, telling me they were a very low seed, making the way up toward the top. It seems to me in the second half of the season, people are doing their homework and showing up to race, maybe getting DSs. We were talking about communication, figuring out how to do TTTs well. So great to see some of these teams upsetting the current status quo. WTRL Skyrocket are coming for 8th. SZ Boulder, we watched them for a while out there. Shout out to the Swedish Zwift racers there for 9th. And SDW Vespere coming in for 10th in the men's side of things. Let's take a look here then at the B category.
That's got to be the tightest top 10 I think we've ever seen in a team's time trial. So over in the Div B, we've got the Z Thundercats. They took the win, fairly solid margin there, 33 seconds ahead of the after party people. Maybe they partied too hard, and that caused that. In third, the TFC Magneto came in third. INC Alien Horde. These are some curious names in this one. In fourth, WTRL Skyfall coming in fifth. The TR Junkies B1 in sixth. KRT Psycho Circus. How's that for a team name? In seventh, nearly 2 minutes back. Alongside the DZR Road Rascals, Socks for Watts, Aero AF in ninth. And in 10th, we've got those BRT craft beers. So those times have been a little bit readjusted from what we were seeing on screen. But I think that we've got the data nailed and nice and accurate there for the bees.
In the C category, Just for Glory coming on through for first place. Same watts per kilogram, but a 26-second gap. Number TFC Thor in second. This will be Cryogen Doi Infinend. Am I even close there? I mean, I don't even know. Like, do you know that climb? Do you know that climb, Kate?
That's adding to the Google list. I've got to say, actually, I'm not.
There's so many Cryogen
teams
that I think they are searching for climbs now at themselves at this point and finding them. Here's a random one that the casters won't know, way out in the middle of Indonesia somewhere.
Yeah.
What if I'm right?
Yeah.
If I just like suddenly said Indonesia and I was right, I like please send me to Las Vegas. All right, our Woolly Winos there coming through for fourth. These Underdogs in fifth. PBR 44 Tooth in sixth. Sasquatch What's Up Doc. Keeping it cool with Carrots and a Rabbit in seventh. It's gonna be KRTC Love Guns in eighth. BRT Cheetahs in ninth, and Zwift Scotland C coming through for 10th place. What's going on?
Well, I can confirm you were in the general region, not Indonesia, but Thailand is Doi Inthanon. So there you go. It's a mountain in
threw the
Thailand.
dart.
So you're pretty
Threw the
close.
dart just off target.
But that is a delightfully obscure one. I love that. So Cryogen are doing well. We have in the D here, we've got the Tuggers Monchique taking the win there ahead of Team NL. They looked so very put together and solid with their coordinated ups and downs on the bike. Team CLS Delimited Diesels coming in third. Herd of One Trick Ponies in fourth. Cryogen Hard Not Pass. Now I know this is in the UK, that one. In fifth. Herd of Slippery Seahorses. I like all these herds in sixth. And the BRT Draconies coming in seventh.
Well, that's going to be it for our results. That's what we got so far. If you want to take a look at the standings, people got to head on over to WTRL. And I am getting a message here from Alice Lethbridge, which is really great, that Colin the Caterpillar versus Percy the Pig. So there's a little bit of like interesting things going on here with these like there's a lot of background information, but that led into somehow talking about the competition, because Alice was in on this with Leah. Okay. And this might actually be happening. It looks like, where we're going to be doing a hobnobs and cookies and maybe some other sweets varieties competition. If you want to get in on this, you make sure to send me a message, and we'll try and figure this out. We'll try and get Leah on live, and we'll have a competition. If you agree, I mean, I'm forcing you to eat now. I don't know if you show up to EMEA, next thing you know,
not necessarily eat. But I've seen, I've been educated, because chat is telling me that there is actually 3 kinds of hobnobs: one with no chocolate. Seriously, who are those people? One with milk chocolate, and then one with dark chocolate. So I will have to pick, I think, between the milk and the dark. And I think, like any good Zwift race, it's all in the preparation. So I'll have to lay it all out. But I'm all up for a hobnob off. I mean, I don't even
eat hobnob off.
I'm definitely not getting invited back, am I?
Oh, it's great. We're okay. Well, everybody, if you're looking forward to the hobnob off, make sure you hit those follow buttons, turn on your notifications, and if you're looking for that kind of content, I mean, that is the content that we show up for here on Zwift. Well, why do we Zwift anyways? I mean, I think half the riders out here, including myself at this point, probably just so I can eat still in my life at this point.
Yeah. Well, I have a t-shirt that says I ride for tacos. So, I think it's pretty clear where I stand.
You might have just came up with a new shirt. We might just get a new shirt now. I eat for hobnobs. I eat for hobnobs. Wait, no, I ride for hobnobs.
Oh my goodness me. Well, look, Nathan, I think this could descend into chaos very quickly. A very big thank you for having me here, and welcome to everybody. Lovely to meet the EMEA community. And I don't know, I almost feel like I need to apologize for my first week out. You'd think I'd be slightly better behaved in my first showing. Alas, here we are. So well done to everybody in the racing. I reckon the recon really paid off, because all in all, Nathan, we had a much neater show from the teams today, or this morning for me, than we did last night in APAC.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. We did see a lot of organization. It may come from a little bit more experience, not too much of a shot across the bow there. I mean, we do have some of the longest standing teams, though, as well as, a lot of the really, really high competition, which then tends to iron sharpens iron kind of a situation there a little bit. But yeah, I definitely thought that the recons, as well as just the organization over the top in EMEA, was super obvious. And it's really going to be interesting to see how this ends up playing out for those playoffs that just got announced. So looking forward to week number 6 next week. We're live later tonight as well, Kate.
We are. Give us a few hours to bake some hobnobs and have a coffee, and we will see you back here. Of course, head over to WTRL.racing for the rundown and all of those numbers, so you can check in on the results. And we'll see you a little bit later, Nathan. Thank
Yep.
you.
See everybody. Right on.